Chapter 1028. These are Mr. Song's exact words. He hopes to write off all his past grudges with you, Mr. Chin. You didn't lose out back then, and Mr. Song can make the decision on this matter. When the time comes, Xia Guang won't have to transfer it for free, and he'll get at least 50 million in transfer fees. Qin Guang laughed coldly. What kind of joke is this? I spent 170 million on Xia Guang, and he'll only give me 50 million? Don't joke, Mr. Chin. Even if Xia Guang Environmental Protection passes the inspection, it'll only have 4 months of operating rights left. There's no point in you holding on, Mr. Chin. After 4 months you'll still get nothing. For Mr. Song to offer 50 million for 4 months of operating rights is already charity. Tiansong Water is only bleeding money to push forward the reconstruction of Tangshan Industrial Complex as soon as possible. Otherwise he wouldn't have to make such a concession. Don't you think so? What's more, our inspection has only just begun. Whether we can pass or not is still another matter. Qin Guang glanced at him, not wanting to pay him any more attention. Just looking at him annoyed him. Song Ningyuan's greeting seemed like a concession, but it was clearly to let this grandson use 50 million to mock him. If he really had any sincerity, he wouldn't have asked someone else to bring the message, but come here personally to lower his head. I'm not fighting for your 50 million, I'm fighting for my pride. What's more, even if Song Ningyuan were to fork out 50 million more to let Tiansong Water obtain Tangshan Industrial Complex, they would still make at least 400 to 500 million net after another 20 years of operating rights. This made Qin Guang exceptionally unhappy. This feeling was like he was about to eat a piece of meat in his mouth, only to have it snatched away from his anus by his second brother in Africa. Mr. Qin, help me bring a message to Song Ningyuan. Go ahead. Tell him to stay where he wants to be. Mr. Qin, why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? Qin Guang turned back impatiently and glared at him. Get lost, don't bother me. The old man hurriedly slipped away, glancing disdainfully at Qin Guang from time to time, thinking, damn it, you're retarded. After suffering for so long, Qin Guang's heart had already loosened a little. He also felt that his inexplicable persistence was a little silly. But now that the matter was halfway done, Song Ningyuan, who was an eyesore to him, suddenly provoked him. Qin Guang's stubborn temper had to get the better of him. If you want to do it, I won't let you do it now. This was not just a matter of face but money. Now that Song Ningyuan had raised the price to 50 million, as long as he could get through the investigation he would be able to raise the price even if he wanted to sell it. I won't sell it to you even if I have to. Moreover, if Tiansong Water Group can invest in the reconstruction, I can also invest in the reconstruction with Sister Lu Fei's support. I can also renegotiate the operating period. It's clear that it's a stable profit and not a loss. It's beneficial to the country and the people, and I can also earn a good reputation. It's tiring, but why wouldn't I do it? If Song Ningyuan knew that he had secretly asked someone to talk to Qin Guang, not only did it not have a positive effect, but it had also aroused Qin Guang's fighting spirit. He was afraid that his intestines would turn green. Time passed bit by bit, and the investigation of Tangshan Industrial Factory gradually caused a stir in Tangshan City. Among the Tangshan locals, there was no one who did not pay attention to this matter. As the investigation team officially entered Tangshan Industrial Factory with great fanfare, everyone had prepared firecrackers, wanting to celebrate the cancer of Xia Guang Environmental Protection, finally dying of old age. Everyone could finally be free from the sea of bitterness. However, as time passed, some news of the investigation gradually leaked out. There were still many local people quietly running to the industrial factory's water outlet to watch. The water that was discharged was so clear and translucent that it could be used to make tea. The people were also confused. They did not know much about technology. They only thought that the new boss of Tangshan Industrial Factory had magic, could turn stone into gold, and could turn something rotten into something magical. Ordinary people were so easily satisfied. They did not care who was running the factory, and they did not even care if the factory was rebuilt or not. They only wanted to see the water coming out of the factory become clear and bright. They only wanted to see the water in Tangshan River return to its former emerald green. They could swim in the river, fish, bathe, and use the river water to irrigate or raise fish. No matter what, the water coming out of Tangshan Industrial Factory was really gratifying to see. Among the people of Tangshan City, there were probably only a few people who had a headache at this time. They were Chief Engineer Yang and his group, who had asked for N+1 severance pay when Qin Guang arrived at Tangshan Industrial Factory. Originally, Chief Engineer Yang and the others were already very annoyed when they were chased away after only getting the last 3 months' salary. They could only watch helplessly as others could at least get N+1 more. Then they took the lead in causing trouble but failed. They did not get any benefits and were even locked up in the detention center. Chief Engineer Yang's family used their connections everywhere and spent tens of thousands of yuan, but they were still detained for a full 48 hours before they barely got the treatment of being released on bail pending trial. Chief Engineer Yang, who had tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing the rice, was now watching helplessly as Tangshan Industrial Factory seemed to be able to survive the investigation. The N+1 severance pay that Qin Guang had promised to the others was going to become a large bonus that Qin Guang had mentioned. If it was him with 8 years of work and a monthly salary of 6 to 7,000 yuan, he would get 120,000 to 30,000 yuan. Just because of his impulsive decision at that time, he had lost as much as 150,000 to 60,000 yuan in one go. How could he not be angry? How could he not suffer internal injuries? He simply could not figure it out. As the technical chief engineer, he had worked in Tangshan Industrial Factory for 8 years. He knew the situation in the factory like the back of his hand. He was sure that even if he added medicine, it would not be possible to pass the investigation. But what was going on? What the hell was going on? In the middle of the night when there was no one around, he pulled a few employees who had been driven away with him and quietly ran to the water outlet with a flashlight. He found that the water was as clear as the rumors said. He scooped up a spoonful of water and did not smell any strange odors. He had to believe it even if he didn't want to believe it. He had to accept his fate. It's all your fault. If you hadn't taken the lead to cause trouble, would we have followed you? Otherwise, if we all stayed now, what does it have to do with us whether Tangshan Industrial Factory changes hands in the end? Tens of thousands of yuan were all gone because of you. Chief Engineer Yang, who was feeling depressed, was kicked in the butt by the mechanical repair class monitor who was standing behind him. He fell into the ditch with a splash. After drinking a lot of dirty water, Chief Engineer Yang stood up angrily, turned around and roared, F***CK. Did I ask you to follow me? I lost more than you. F***C. As he shouted angrily, he climbed up with his body wet, but as soon as he climbed up he was kicked back into the ditch by a few of his little followers. Most of the time, people often didn't admit their own mistakes when they suffered losses. Instead, they would subconsciously find a scapegoat in their hearts and blame their wrong decisions on the influence of others. At this time, the middle and lower-level employees of the former Tangshan Industrial Factory, who had also suffered a lot of losses, had this mentality. They wouldn't reflect on the fact that it was their own decision to leave the factory after falling out with Qin Guang. Instead, they would simply push the blame to Chief Engineer Yang. Chief Engineer Yang fell into the ditch again and gritted his teeth as he looked up at the people above. Are you crazy? I'll F***king kill you. Come on, I've been unhappy with you for a long time. If you weren't so useless, would Tangshan Industrial Factory be like this? Right now we should be enjoying our bonuses in the factory like everyone else. That's right. Damn it. Poor Chief Engineer Yang. He was already so old, but he was still repeatedly kicked back into the gutter in this cold autumn day. It wasn't until he was beaten black and blue and the others were afraid that he would die and left that Chief Engineer Yang climbed up the table while trembling. He touched his trouser pocket. The phone he had just bought had already been completely destroyed by the water. His heart was filled with endless desolation and uncontrollable anger. He hated it. He hated the original subordinates or followers who had beaten him up today. He also hated Qin Guang's coldness and ruthlessness. He hated Qin Guang even more for deliberately using him as a model even though he had a way. He didn't feel that he had done anything wrong at all. He felt that Qin Guang was clearly targeting him and wanted to use him to establish his dominance. Chief Engineer Yang stomped his feet and spat in the direction of Tangshan Industrial Factory. Then he limped and disappeared into the darkness. Even the reeds on the side of the road could feel his anger and grievance. Unknowingly, another 2 days had passed. The inconceivable stone Buddha, earthly god Qin Guang, had already been sitting at the water inlet for an entire 6 days. Qin Guang's condition looked terrible. His face was pale and sallow. His body trembled inexplicably from time to time, like a patient with severe hepatitis. Even Guoming began to be afraid. He tried to ask Qin Guang to go to the hotel to have a good rest, but he was flatly refused. Qin Guang's answer made Guoming feel despair. At that time he said, "I'm here. The tower is here." Guoming wanted to persuade him, but he didn't continue after this sentence. He was like an Indian ascetic, and he also practiced a temporary silent meditation. He didn't understand what Qin Guang meant by, "I'm here, the tower is here." He always felt that it contained an inexplicable strong will. It seemed that once Qin Guang left the original place, the sewage treatment plant would explode. "I'm here" meant that he must stay there and not move. But what does "the tower is here" mean? A water tower? Our plant doesn't have a water tower. Is he hinting to us that we need to build a new cooling tower because we need to use evaporation and condensation for the wastewater pretreatment? Guoming, who was confused, kept mumbling on the way back to the office. He bumped into Lu Fei, who was rushing back. "Manager Lu, I have a favor to ask of you." Guoming quickly stopped Lu Fei. Lu Fei nodded. "What's wrong? Say it." "You haven't been here for 2 days, so you don't know how serious the situation is. Now Qin Guang is almost possessed. His expression is scary. I asked him to rest, but he refused. Please help me persuade him." "What is this?" "Even if he is worried about the investigation, he doesn't have to sit there all the time. My nephew sat in the internet cafe for 3 days. When we dragged him out, he almost died. Qin Guang has been sitting there for 6 days. Other than eating and going to the toilet, he hasn't moved." Lu Fei waved her hand casually. "Manager Guo, don't worry. Anyone in the world will get into trouble, but he won't." "Are you kidding me? A great mage who can destroy the world will die from sitting for a long time? No one would believe it." Lu Fei also didn't think that Qin Guang would have that much determination. It would be a pity if he died. "Listen to me, he's starting to talk nonsense." "What nonsense?" He said, "I'm here. The tower is here." Lu Fei, she thought to herself, he's seriously ill. The world's best Tower of Swords player started to recite Garen's lines. Previously he had tried to coerce and entice him to play League of Legends with him, but he refused with all kinds of excuses. "How about we fix the canopy on his head? Is it because he's cold?" Lu Fei gave a suggestion to Guoming before she ran in Qin Guang's direction and asked the moment she arrived. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I feel good." "Really?" Qin Guang nodded heavily. "Of course, it's better than ever. I don't think this is a bad thing for me." Chapter 1029. Qin Guang didn't spout nonsense. Over the past 4 days, the earth exploder ability in his body had been at the critical point. It was overdrawn from time to time, but recovered from time to time. Not only that, the more he used it, the more he found that the efficiency of absorbing the earth element power from the outside world had become higher. It seemed that because of the continuous use, the earth exploder ability of the ultimate elemental creature had awakened a powerful instinct. If he used to absorb the earth element power around his body, he could absorb the earth element power from an assumed concentration of 10,000 units to only 10 units. Now the gradually awakening ultimate elemental creature's instinct allowed him to completely absorb the earth element power around his body to only 0.1 units. The effect was as outstanding as a domestic vacuum pump being upgraded to an imported German laboratory product. Just like the principle of molecular diffusion, Qin Guang made the concentration of earth element power around his body lower, so the earth element power that gradually spread from a distance would be faster and more. In the past his absorption range was about 200 kilometers, but now with him as the center his absorption range had gradually spread to thousands of kilometers away, and could even slowly affect the whole world. He was relying on his own strength to continuously reduce the concentration of earth element that had already dispersed over the whole earth. Qin Guang even had confidence that no matter what the world would change in the future, with his continuous absorption like a black hole, he could at least guarantee that there wouldn't be any earth element power left for other creatures in the world. Even if the world was filled with more elemental power than the Dolua world in the future, he could at least make this world have one less element power. The upper limit of the earth exploder was the God Emperor. Qin Guang himself didn't know where the limit of his absorption power was. In short, I don't care if you are metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, forest, fire, mountain, earth or light, dark, earth, fire, water and wind, I will make you lack earth element. I will undoubtedly become the only earth elemental creature on the earth. I am Leap Earth, what can I do for you? In addition, the awakening of the Earth Exploder ability made his perfect body, which was almost overwhelmed, stabilize the situation. Previously, when he was the most exhausted, he even faintly had the illusion that his body was about to collapse. But later, the super regeneration and self-healing ability of the Earth Sauce Bomber quickly awakened, so that his recovery speed just happened to suppress the loss caused by overwork. Right now his complexion only appeared to be poor. His complexion was also the color of dirt, but it actually matched the characteristics of an ultimate Earth elemental creature. The power of Leap Earth had been awakened for the second time. Super self-healing, no fear of fatigue, it was like a self-lubricating machine. Qin Guang himself was pleasantly surprised. He did not expect that he would accidentally discover the method to improve the Earth Burster's superpower. Sure enough, he had verified the truth that people had to struggle, and only with struggle could there be progress. Lu Fei no longer disturbed him. After chatting with him for a while, she turned around and went to Dow Chemical. Qin Guang also closed his eyes and forced himself to meditate. But after a long time he came back to his senses and found that something was wrong. Guoming, this guy actually brought people to build 3 walls around him. He even covered the roof with red glazed tiles. Damn it, I've really become the lord of the land this time. I say, old Gua, I feel like I'm still missing a couplet. Guoming, who was admiring his masterpiece, was startled by Qin Guang, who suddenly woke up. Ah. The first couplet, protect the 4 directions. The second couplet, bless the peace of the village. The horizontal couplet, bless the righteous God. Guoming reacted, isn't that the Earth Temple? Qin Guang said angrily, isn't this the Earth Temple you built for me? How about I change the roof to green? F***ck off. Another 2 days passed. The concentration of chemical oxygen demand and other indicators in the treatment units in the sewage station had risen, but it was still below the standard line. Guoming's heart gradually calmed down. Even the most difficult heavy metal ions were within the controllable range. According to the current trend, even if it continues to improve, it won't exceed the standard tomorrow. This meant that the inspection should be passed without any mishaps. This kid, he can really handle it. These few days expertly felt like he had aged 10 years, and there were more white hairs on his head. He stood next to Guoming and looked at Qin Guang's Earth Temple from afar, sighing sincerely. Guoming blushed slightly. After all, it was quite embarrassing to have a crazy boss. Yeah. Although I don't know what he is persevering for, I feel that he is very powerful. A young girl who was also a member of the inspection team looked in that direction with admiration. Expertly patted Guoming's shoulder with flagging interest. Anyway, you guys are on your own. With that, the poor old man staggered further and further away. In his long life, he had never encountered such a situation. He was very confused. He even quietly installed a flow meter in the water inlet and outlet and observed the water situation of the Tongshan industrial plant. However, after 6 days of continuous monitoring and observation, the water balance was indeed perfect. There was no sneaky discharge or mixing of water. There was no problem at all. Old Master Jean, who was far away in Beijing, was also confused. He knew Expert Li's standard very well and he wouldn't be easily fooled. Since he couldn't find any problems, there was only one explanation. The notorious Tongshan industrial plant could really meet the standards. Song Mingyuan, who was waiting for good news in Beijing, was also confused. These days, as soon as he arrived at the office, he would sit in front of the computer and look at the information sent by his insider in the inspection team. The dazzling red parameters of reaching the standard were like hooked scimitars stabbing into his heart, making him feel worse than if he had eaten a hornet. Although he hadn't seen Qin Guang for a long time, and the two of them hadn't had any direct conversation until now, Song Mingyuan vaguely saw the disdainful expression on Qin Guang's face when he was Tang Ying's shield. That loathsome fellow was like a vengeful spirit that could not be dispersed. He had turned into a fly and was buzzing in her ears, mocking her for overestimating herself and being ridiculous. Looking at the monitor, Song Mingyuan's mind started to hallucinate. It was as if he could see Qin Guang's arrogant and annoying smile when he was on the show. He seemed to be saying to himself, "With just you? You want to fight with me?" Song Mingyuan finally lost control and fiercely punched his own monitor. The latest Apple monitor, which was worth thousands of yuan, fell to the ground and sparks flew. "I have a grudge against you, right? I'm picking up girls and you're here to ruin my business. I endured it. I stayed far away from you and didn't provoke you. My son inherited my father's business and worked hard to run my family's Tiansong water project, and you're here to ruin my business. Your own Tianguang group is clearly doing well now. Even if you fart out of your teeth, the profits will still be hundreds of millions. Why do you have to make things difficult for me? Did I dig up your ancestral grave or what? What grudge? Also, Qin Guang's attitude towards Xie Yu was not good, and the most he said was scram. Later, Qin Guang's attitude towards Song Ningyuan's deputy team leader in the review team was also very bad, and the moment he opened his mouth he also said, scram. It was said that one had to look at the master before beating a dog. Song Ningyuan had tolerated it previously, but now that he had been beaten by Qin Guang he finally understood. The few scram that Qin Guang said to Xie Yu and the deputy team leader was clearly shouting at him. Who would have thought that I, the dignified Song Ningyuan who has the backing of Tiansong Water Project, the leader of the environmental protection industry in China, would be slapped in the face by Qin Guang in my own backyard? I hate it. Mr. Song, what's wrong? The secretary rushed in from the outside in a panic. She looked at the monitor that had been broken into 2 pieces on the ground and was terrified. Song Ningyun touched his face and said through gritted teeth, nothing. A day later, with the last sample up to standard, the week-long review of Tangshan Industrial Plant officially ended. This incredible news swept through Tangshan City in an instant, shocking the officials and the people. Then, as if the news had grown legs, it spread across the country at an even faster speed. Tangshan Industrial Plant and Xiaoguang Environmental Protection, which had been criticized countless times and was known as a weirdo in the history of environmental protection, had met the standards. Even the staunchest anti-Xiaoguang environmental protection loyalist, Deputy Director Pang, silently examined his heart. Had he wrongly accused Qin Guang? Was he actually the world's #1 miracle doctor and had the ability to revive the dead? Could he bring the already rotten Tangshan factory back to its former glory? Not to mention the uproar inside Tangshan Industrial Plant. Other than Lu Fei, even Guoming, Hualing, Zhongyu, and the other 30-odd employees who had personally participated in the entire process were confused as if they were in a dream. As soon as the review team left, Guoming led all the employees straight to the water intake. Qin Guang was still sitting on the swivel chair, eyes closed, motionless. His sallow face had completely turned into a muddy yellow, and his lips were a little cracked. He looked like a dignified monk. No, if not for the fact that he was a living person, just looking at his face, it was obvious that he had become a statue of the earth god. One of the unlucky fellows suddenly raised his hands and prostrated himself on the ground. Chief Qin. Mr. Qin has become the earth god. The earth god has blessed Tangshan Industrial Plant. He has blessed us. What are you all waiting for? Our mud can only sink because Mr. Qin is personally here to protect us. This is the manifestation of a deity. Hurry up and cow. Other than Guoming, Hualing, and Zhongyu, who were extremely embarrassed, the rest of the employees in the factory really did kowtow as if they were worshipping the earth god. Lu Fei almost laughed out loud when she saw this. She suddenly took out 2 couplets from her bag and slapped them on the wall next to Qin Guang. The first couplet, the family is safe. The second couplet, auspicious omen to avoid. The horizontal couplet, Tangshan land. Qin Guang opened his eyes slightly and saw Lu Fei and Guoming's big faces right in front of him. Are they all gone? Guoming quickly replied, yes, they're gone. We passed. Before Qin Guang saw the group of people kneeling before him, he subconsciously felt that he should make use of this opportunity to show off. How is it? You guys said that we're dead? I told you that there wouldn't be a problem. I told you that we could get through. Old Gua, my company doesn't need guards. You still have to do your job here. The superstitious employee from before exclaimed again. The earth god really did show himself. The earth god actually spoke. Qin Guang sat up straight and looked down. What the hell? Where's the deity? The quick-witted employee next to him patted his head. Show my ass. This is Mr. Qin. Chapter 1030. In any case, the investigation was finally dealt with and Qin Guang was finally free. He got up and came out of the land temple. Qin Guang patted the mud on his body and waved his hand. Don't call me the landlord, just call me the god of fortune. What did I say before? Qin Guang held Lu Fei's shoulders, and Miss Lu didn't mind that his body was covered in dust. Guoming was stunned and didn't react, but Lu Tao's eyes quickly lit up. Don't tell me it's N+1. Qin Guang smiled and his body shook, revealing a domineering aura. Wrong. It's 2N. Just give it out now. Everyone get ready to go to the finance department to get your bonus. Money is just a worldly possession and you have to keep your word. Anyway, it's not much. However, there was a very awkward situation. He had been sitting here for 9 days and didn't move, nor did he change his clothes, let alone take a bath. With his big movements, billowing smoke and dust flew around his body, and a strong smell soared into the sky. His whole body was surrounded by yellow smoke and dust. Those who didn't know would think that he was Dragon Ball Goku erupting with Scion's power, but those who knew Lu Fei was covered in dust. Lu Fei really couldn't stand it. She covered her nose and eyes, coughed violently and dodged to the side. Oh my god, it's terrible, really terrible. Guoming next to him also pinched his nose and retreated. That Mr. Chen, why don't you take a bath and change your clothes first? We'll talk about the bonus later? The superstitious and stubborn employee came again. Yes, the landlord has been contaminated by the mortal world, so hurry up and clean yourself. Qin Guang, get lost. Your bonus is gone. After simply cleaning up the cup that was hung on the water inlet to dry for 7 days, Qin Guang first drove back to the hotel in the city. Lu Fei didn't go with him but went directly to the Dow chemical factory. Although the review had been passed, adding drugs was not a permanent solution. The cost of this approach was too high and it was too difficult to achieve. The chemical sludge was always a big problem, so the next step must be put on the agenda immediately. If Lu Enterprise wanted to intervene, it would involve an investment of 200 million in cash. Lu Fei also had to prepare as soon as possible, so she chose to act separately from Qin Guang. However, Qin Guang knew that this was just an excuse for her to fool him. The truth was that she was afraid that she would suffocate to death on the way back to the hotel. Qin Guang didn't delay the matter of the bonus. As soon as he got out of the car, he took out his phone and transferred 2 million yuan to Xiaoguang Environmental Protection's financial account. He asked Guoming to quickly distribute the bonus. As soon as the bonus was paid, the remaining 30 or so employees in the factory naturally cheered. Who didn't love money these days? Everyone sighed. President Chen was a good person, a really good person. No matter what would happen to the factory in the future, with President Chen's virtue of keeping his promises, ordinary bosses couldn't even touch him. Money was one aspect. The employees were now finally motivated to fight for the future of Tongshan Factory and Xiaoguang Environmental Protection. Although Qin Guang had been extremely confident when he first came, and although everyone was encouraged by him at the time, they didn't believe it in their hearts. They only thought that he didn't know the industry and that outsiders acted from the inside. That was why he boasted with passion and blind confidence, throwing out the promise that everyone would get a bonus of 2N after reaching the standard. But now his promise had come true. Even if this was just the last radiance of Xiaoguang Environmental Protection, it could also show President Chen's determination. He must have been spending money like this not just for the remaining 4 months of operation. Otherwise, there was no need to be so generous. He must have further plans. He would never let Xiaoguang Environmental Protection die of old age. This meant that President Chen probably had a way to save the entire Xiaoguang Environmental Protection and Tongshan Industrial Factory. Then everyone would no longer have to worry about the process of resigning and rehiring after Tiansong Water Group took over. The best thing in the world was an iron rice bowl. Who wouldn't want to keep an iron rice bowl? Who wouldn't like it? Thinking back to the day when President Chen first came, Chief Engineer Yang, who had led a team to cause trouble and then been chased away like a stray dog, the remaining employees couldn't hide their joy. Everyone stood in front of a multiple-choice question in history. With a single thought, we chose A and you chose B. The direct result of such a simple choice was that not only did we see the hope of keeping an iron rice bowl, but we also immediately got a bonus of several tens of thousands. Those who couldn't afford the down payment could immediately think of a way to buy a house in the city. Those who wanted to buy a car for a long time but didn't dare to buy it could immediately buy one. But all of you, for the sake of a small profit in order to quickly find your next home, not only did you offend President Chen, but you also missed the opportunity now. You even missed the chance to get a bonus of several tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Without comparison, there would be no harm. With comparison, there would be showing off and ridicule. Qin Guang didn't need to instruct the remaining people in the factory to do things like beating a dog while it was down. Everyone could see that President Qin never kept a low profile. He was also very clear about what he liked and what he hated. It was in line with President Chen's style to say what he was happy about and let those short-sighted traitors, who went against the wheel of history, regret their actions. Therefore, as the bonus arrived, the WeChat group of the former employees of the Tongshan Industrial Factory was suddenly flooded with messages. Even Hua Ling and Zhong Yu, the two non-staff members, received an extra special bonus of 100,000 yuan each. This was also deliberately ordered by Qin Guang. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu's accurate tests and calculations were indispensable for them to be able to smoothly pass the test. Although the two girls were too embarrassed to take the money, they couldn't dissuade Qin Guang from giving it to them. He even praised the two of them as if not taking the money would be a great sin. Once the money arrived, Hua Ling and Zhong Yu dragged the others to send screenshots to the old WeChat group. "Ha, we're rich. My son was just preparing to buy a new house in Wujing. He still needed more than 40,000 yuan for the down payment. This time it's just enough. I envy old Deng. I don't even have a wife. Tomorrow I'll go to see the houses in Lakeshore New City. I'll take a mortgage and buy a small apartment. The girl who went on a blind date last month complained that I don't have a house. I plan to buy a car. I'll save it first. Little Hua and little Zhong are still the best. They haven't even graduated yet, but they can each get 100,000 yuan. Amazing. You're not jealous of him, are you? This is what they deserve. Knowledge is power, understand? They're not ordinary university students, they're master's students. Didn't you see how beautiful their experiments were? How complicated the calculation process was? Exactly. President Qin, this is called reward based on merit. Long live the Lord of the land. Get lost. Hua Ling, everyone, don't be like this. Zhong Yu and I are really sorry. We'll treat all the seniors to a meal later. Even though they knew that Chief Engineer Yang and the others were also in the old WeChat group, the staff in the group were still chatting enthusiastically. They were deliberately provoking Chief Engineer Yang and the others to make them feel bad and sprinkle salt on their wounds. In professional terms, this was called a stab in the back. Qin Guang, who was taking a shower in the hotel, still did not know that his employees were so quick-witted and considerate. Otherwise, he would have doubled his bonus. That's right. People are like bears in a nest, and they will be like bears in a pile. One is marked by the company one keeps, and one is blackened by the company one keeps. Like boss, like employee. An employee must be in sync with the boss to be considered a good employee. Back then, he did not even bat an eyelid when he promised Chief Engineer Yang a 2N bonus. Wasn't his goal to anger Chief Engineer Yang to death? Qin Guang wanted others to see that those who followed him would prosper, and those who opposed him would perish. Being able to have such subjective initiative, these guys were all promising talents. Poor Chief Engineer Yang and the others. When they saw the messages in the WeChat group, even though they knew that those people were doing it on purpose, they could not control their emotions at all. They gritted their teeth and glared at them in anger. What the hell is this? We should have had it too. But now those two interns had it and each of them had 100,000. We didn't get anything at all. The leader of the mechanical repair class slammed the table and called another 7 or 8 of his brothers to go downstairs. Now that the rice had been cooked, they could not return to the factory and they could not get the bonus. However, the anger in their hearts could not be extinguished, and they had to find an outlet to vent. Alright, there's no need to say anything. Let's go beat up old Yang. This unlucky guy was the one who set the bad example. Old Yang still did not know that danger was approaching. He was lying on his sofa, gritting his teeth as his wife changed the medicine on his face. His wife did not hold back either. While changing the medicine, she looked down at old Yang's new phone screen from time to time. It was the frequent messages in the WeChat group. She muttered, Look, it's all your fault. Lu Tao, that idiot, took 50,000. Look at you. You didn't get a single cent and you caused our family to lose more than 30,000. Are you stupid? Old Yang roared, Shut up. What do you know, bitch? It's not my fault. Qin Guang wanted to establish his dominance on me from the start. He did it on purpose. Even if I didn't jump out, he still wanted to punish me. Faster, thief. Do you believe that I'll give you 2 slaps if you speak any more nonsense? You still have a temper, huh? You were beaten black and blue outside and now you're acting like a tyrant in front of your wife. Yang, why are you so capable? Old Yang's wife threw the medicine on the sofa, turned around and went back into the house angrily. Old Yang stood up, panting. He looked at the door that had been slammed shut, and his chest felt so tight that he wanted to punch the wall. It was as if he had been abandoned by the world in just a few days. At that moment his cell phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. Old Yang was in a fit of anger and he didn't even think about it. It must be some kind of harassment call to promote financial management. He was annoyed. But in less than 2 minutes the unfamiliar call came in again. It was the same number. Old Yang was puzzled. Who could it be? He picked up the phone and a voice that sounded like music to him came from the other side. Hello, is this Yang Ditsai from Tongshan Industrial Factory? Sir, who are you? I'm no longer working at Tongshan Industrial Factory, but I'm indeed Yang Ditsai. Oh, that's good. I'm Song Mingyuan, the Senior Director of Tiansong Water. You should know me. Old Yang, who had felt that his life was gloomy a moment ago, suddenly lit up. He felt that he had seen a new dawn in his life. On the other side, Qin Guang took a comfortable shower, then lay on the hotel bed and didn't want to get up. On the one hand, he was indeed a little tired. On the other hand, since Lu Fei was also in Tongshan, he didn't stink after taking a shower. Why not talk to Sister Lu Fei about life? He picked up his cell phone and looked at it. He also dragged it to his old WeChat group, and then he was amused by the actions of these witty employees. He felt that the money was really well spent. He switched to the desktop of his cell phone and was about to call Lu Fei when Guoming called first. Qin Guang. Not good. Guoming's voice sounded a little flustered. Qin Guang wondered, what's wrong? The sludge in the pool has floated up again. A lot. It's all in the anaerobic pool and there's even more in the aerobic pool. The sedimentation pool and stabilization pool are also full of floating mud. Qin Guang was stunned for a moment, but he immediately reacted. He had left in a hurry and forgot to say hello to Guoming, scaring him. He didn't use his ability to suppress the mud. Of course, the mud would float up, but this was not a problem. It's okay. It's a normal phenomenon. We added so many drugs before, so of course it will form mud. It would be unscientific if there was no mud, okay? Let's start from now on. That's right. I will arrange it now. However, there is too much mud now. The power of our belt deslimer can't keep up. A lot of it will probably flow out from the outlet. Say. Qin Guang nodded. It's okay. Anyway, it can't be worse than before. After hanging up the phone, Qin Guang sighed. It was inevitable that Guoming would be scared. Qin Guang was also quite helpless. However, he couldn't squat there to suppress the mud for the rest of his life, right? He had no choice but to go outside for the next 2 days. The cost of the entire plant's desliming was not small. It was a big project, but he had to do it. In a sense, desliming was actually pollution treatment. It turned the pollutants dissolved in the water into solid sludge that could be collected. After dehydration, it was transported to different places, either to make cement or to be incinerated. If it was more toxic, it had to be sent to the hazardous waste center for landfill at a higher cost. It was better than letting these pollutants directly enter the natural water environment. However, as soon as the review team left, the discharged water turned into instant coffee. If the people saw it, they would definitely gossip. However, Qin Guang didn't feel guilty. The sludge that was wrapped in water now looked scary. In terms of harm to the natural environment, it was much better than the substandard wastewater from before. If he really felt guilty, he would wait a few more days for the pollution concentration to rise again. After the major biochemical treatment sections completely collapsed, he would blame himself. Next week at the latest, he had to finalize the reconstruction with Sister Lu Fei. Then, through the park management committee, he would inform the other enterprises in the industrial park to prepare to store water. If it couldn't be stored, then stop production. The industrial plant would have to be completely rebuilt. Your clay bodhisattva can't even protect itself, so you better pray for yourself. Since he was involved in this mess, Qin Guang didn't want to just leave. He wanted to do something for the environment with a very serious attitude. However, rice had to be eaten one bite at a time. Things could only be done one at a time. There would be some twists and turns in the middle. Some of the sludge would have to be discharged, and he had no choice. Qin Guang wasn't an absolute Virgin Mary. Of course, he didn't need to blame himself for things that he couldn't control. Qin Guang waited for another 10 minutes before Lu Fei arrived. As soon as she entered the door, she reported a piece of good news to Qin Guang. She had almost finished talking about the matchmaking between Xia Guang Environmental Protection and the water company under Lu Chemical. About the day after tomorrow, her father, Lu Jiachuan, would personally announce the decision at the shareholders' meeting and make a nominal vote. Most of the shareholders of Lu Chemical were the Lu family's own people. Passing the vote was a sure thing. However, Lu Fei had to go back to Lu's headquarters in person to make a more comprehensive endorsement to the elders. Qin Guang's heart was relieved and his heart felt more at ease. Although he still had to spend more money to make things seem less perfect, imperfection was also a kind of regret. There were not so many perfect things in the world. Hey, Sister Lu Fei, anyway, you've helped me a lot this time. How do you think I should reward you? Lu Fei's heart warmed under his meaningful gaze. She lay down beside him and curled her body like a snake. You have to be gentler with me. 2 hours later, Lu Fei forcefully put on her clothes and got out of bed. Qin Guang still wanted to ask her to stay, but she shook her head and replied, I have other matters to attend to in the company, so I have to leave. I have to go back to Lu's headquarters to participate in the vote tomorrow. Time is tight. Anyway, just wait for my good news. I'm leaving. Qin Guang reluctantly watched her leave. His nose was still filled with the decadent smell of the room. Then he threw his head back and fell down. It had been 9 days. He could finally sleep peacefully. Chapter 1031. Picking up his watch, he saw that it was already past 4 in the afternoon. Qin Guang decided not to go to the factory today. He would rest in the hotel for the rest of the day and go to the factory tomorrow morning. Anyway, he had nothing to do. Although he said that he was going to lie down, it was not a simple rest. He planned to go online and watch the latest episodes of Women and High. My God. The publicity of the film. Although he was lazy and did not like to take care of things, he still had to pay attention to it. He was going to spend up to 200 million yuan. After thinking about it, he could only rely on Tianguang Group to recoup his capital. Women was still doing well. Big Beard was working on the post-production and had already decided on the release date. With Qin Guang's perfect acting skills, the other actors in the film also performed exceptionally well. Big Beard was now completely confident that this commercial film, which was originally just to make money, could reach a higher goal. Recently, at the behest of Big Beard, the main cast of the movie had been doing all sorts of things when they were being interviewed or participating in variety shows, increasing the exposure and public opinion of the movie in various ways. Ren Chong, Zhao Yueling, Zhou Ye, as well as Shi Lu, who had been rising in fame recently, practically all of them were shooting their mouths off. Whenever someone mentioned women and asked about Qin Guang's performance on the screen, they wouldn't just raise their thumbs up. Instead, their eyes would light up with a look of worship on their faces. They couldn't wait to join the Almighty Divine sect and become a fanatical believer of an almighty superhuman. As for Jiang Yage and Jin Shirue, the two most loyal fans of Qin Guang, they were almost as good as the top 7 braggers in the world. Together with the braggers Zhang and Ku in the world of basketball, the braggers Luo and Mei in the world of football, and the braggers Tiger and Lion in the world of animals, they formed the top 7 braggers in the world. In addition, the internal staff of the film crew kept sending out promotional articles at the speed of 1 article a day. It was impossible not to read them. These things were said to be internal leaks, but with the mature management of Big Beardy's team, in fact, the choice of words and sentences in every draft was carefully chosen. It was guaranteed to tickle people's hearts. If they didn't go to the cinema to watch it, they would be going against their conscience. In any case, everyone had to brag about it first. They would only boast about the film to the skies and trick people into going to the cinema first. They would not be afraid that people would turn against them after watching it. Instead, it was very likely that they would be able to get more water and replicate the success of the domestically produced cartoon, The Return of the Great Sage, from a few years ago. The plot of the movie could not be considered innovative, nor was it forced to be profound. However, as a famous director in the industry, Big Beard had a good grasp of the narrative structure of the movie. When the time came, the story would definitely be closely linked with ups and downs, and the narrative would be tight and compact. Not only could it allow people to feel the visual and spiritual impact of a large commercial film, but it also allowed people to find reflections on life. The most important thing was that Big Beard had confidence in Qin Guang's acting skills. He had confidence in the performance of the entire cast and crew. Whether it was the fans who had seen Qin Guang's plays before, the critics, or those who had not, Big Beard Deng was confident that when they came out of the cinema, they would definitely not be able to say a word of no. Even if there were really blind people who went against their conscience and deliberately stood on the negative side to spew slander, these people would not be able to stop a car with their bare hands. They would only be drowned in the long river of good reviews. The more Big Beard edited the post-production, the more confidence he had. The movie had already come this far. If it was still a flop, then he, Big Beard Deng, should not be in this industry anymore. He should just go home and plant sweet potatoes. On the other hand, Bamboo Platform, Chili Satellite TV and Tianguang Media's Hi, My God! Variety show was being promoted by both Earth and Net. It was also continuously attacking the netizens' eyeballs at a crazy frequency. As this show did not have Qin Guang's appearance for the time being, it did not have its own hot topic. Therefore, in terms of operating ideas, they needed to learn more from the successful experience of other shows. Warming up and creating hype was only the first step. When it was officially released, they had to follow up with more hype ideas. In this aspect, Tianguang Media was relatively lacking in experience. However, Bamboo Platform and Chili Satellite TV were familiar with this. Fortunately, Chu Zijin's learning ability was also very strong. He could always come up with ideas that made people's eyes light up. She did not ruin Qin Guang's reputation. Qin Guang roughly swept a glance at the situation on the internet and was rather satisfied with it. The popularity of the newly established Tianguang culture had gradually subsided. After all, this was only a management company that controlled the contracts of artists. There was no need to maintain a high popularity. Regardless of whether it was an artist or an internet celebrity, in the end they had to rely on their works to speak. Things at the level of capital could at most be used as gossip after a meal. There was no meaning in maintaining a high popularity. The audience would only watch the show in the beginning. As time passed, they would eventually turn their attention in other directions. When he looked at the time again, it was already 6 o'clock in the evening. Qin Guang changed into a jacket, wore a mask and sunglasses and wandered out to look for food. He was happily sitting at the Chinese food stall by the river and eating heartily when he received a call from Guoming. Qin Guang stuffed food into his mouth as he asked, "How's the mud drainage going?" Initially, Guoming wanted to say something, but he hesitated before he decisively said, "Qin Guang, I have a piece of bad news for you." "Speak." "Today, all of our mud pumps were operating at full capacity for the whole day. We even hired 70 to 80 temporary workers from outside to stand by the pool and fish continuously. We even called the tanker trucks from Tongshan City over, but it's still too slow. The most troublesome thing is that our belt filter presses are not enough. Now, I've started to directly pull out the mud that hasn't been dehydrated from the mud storage pool. The cost has suddenly increased by a large amount. There are at least 100 trucks of dehydrated mud. If it's not dehydrated, I estimate that there will be at least 400 trucks. Pulling one truck will cost 2,000 yuan. This is burning money. But even so, I estimate that it will take at least 4 days to drain all the mud." Qin Guang pinched his fingers and calculated. Cost more than 1,000,000 yuan to buy medicine. Looking at it now, it would also cost more than 1,000,000 yuan to drain the mud. The operating cost of running a business was really not something that anyone could bear. If it was someone with poor mental quality, they would have fainted when they heard this number. It's quite a headache, but there's no other way. This money has to be spent. But now there's another problem. The receiving units that we contacted before are almost full. I just calculated that the remaining capacity of those units is now only 200 trucks. Qin Guang was puzzled. Then can't we just slowly drain the mud? Why do we have to drain the mud? Guoming sighed. Next is the worst news I have to tell you. We can't be slow. Old Gua, can we finish what we have to say at once? I also just found out about it. About an hour ago we were reported by someone. We were reported again? Who did it? Yang De. It's the chief engineer Yang that we chased away. Qin Guang's eyes widened. How dare he? Guoming sighed. I suspect that he has found Tian Song as his backer. It's my negligence. It should be in the morning. Not long after you left, after the mud floated up, Yang Detsai brought a few people to our factory's water outlet to take a video. They recorded the mud flowing out of the water. Now, their video and articles are not only posted on the Environmental Protection Department's website, but they are all over the place. Looking at the way the articles are written, there must be someone behind this. Other than Tian Song, there can't be anyone else. Qin Guang slammed the table. He wanted to curse, but he remembered that he was the backbone of Xiaoguang Environmental Protection. He couldn't let his emotions show. It's fine. I took Song Mingyuan's victory. It would be weird if he didn't do something. I'll return to the factory immediately. Continue to drain the mud and get someone to add a sieve to the water outlet. Try not to leak anymore. I've already added a sieve. That's good. 20 minutes later, under the night sky, Qin Guang appeared in the brightly lit and bustling Tongshan Industrial Factory. Although the inspection team had left, the battle for the survival of Tongshan Industrial Factory was not over. Guoming and the other employees didn't feel it was hard. This was the survival of the environmentalists. No matter how leisurely they were, they had to bring out the determination and courage to fight on the battlefield. With a high reward there will be brave men. Qin Guang's 2K bonus had already been paid. The entire Tongshan Industrial Factory was now full of brave men. Xiaolu, the belt machine is overheating. What should we do? Get someone to spray it at him. Don't stop. Don't spray too much. Move the electric fan in my dorm over and blow it. Leadership, the melon broke again. Buy a deal. Hurry up and buy it. Remove the dragon gold and 5 elements. I just called them. Buy some asbestos mesh and stainless steel mesh too. One screw pump was burned. There's a smaller one in the warehouse. Change it right away. It must be done in half an hour. Old Ding, is the boss's framing machine ready? Hurry up and do it if you can. One more is one more. Xiaolu, come over here quickly. The valve next to the mud pump exploded. So be it. Wrap it in a plastic bag first. There's no time to change the valve. During the afternoon when Qin Guang was slacking off, Murphy's theorem seemed to have exerted its greatest effect in Tongshan Industrial Factory. When something bad might or might not happen, it often did. Such a high-intensity mud discharge caused many of the problems that had accumulated in the Tongshan Industrial Factory for many years to erupt. One problem followed another. Everyone was as busy as ants on a hot pan. There was no time to breathe at all. Although Qin Guang was now a billionaire, this was the first time he had actually put it into practice on the production line. He had also learned a lot. For these factory employees, this was the battlefield where they risked their lives. This was the home and secure rice bowl that they risked their lives to protect. Qin Guang finally found Guoming at the location of the Haoyang sedimentation pond. At this time, Comrade Guo was also covered in mud, standing on the edge of the pond with his sleeves rolled up. Mr. Qin is here. When old Guo turned around and saw Qin Guang, he exclaimed in joy. The employees in other places heard the voice and also cheered in unison. Qin Guang grinned. But even so, with the recent hype of women that brought Qin Guang popularity, Qin Guang's popularity rose several times in just one afternoon, but his reputation had completely declined. To put it bluntly, his reputation was ruined. With Chief Engineer Yang's ability, of course, it was impossible for him to set off such a storm of public opinion in a short period of time. Comrade Li from the review team would also not do such a thing. After all, they had just left and they had just passed the certification, but now they were exposed. The impact on them was no less than the impact on Tongshan Factory. Therefore, Guoming's guess was 100% accurate. It must be Tiansong Water Group that was causing trouble. If it was Qin Guang in the past, he would definitely try to find Chief Engineer Yang and teach him a lesson. But now, Qin Guang felt that this was not a good idea. Finding out Yang Ditsai was only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. If it was exposed, then the fact that he was playing with power would be confirmed. Forget it, let's drain the mud first. No matter how much the internet was stirring up, as long as there was no mud from now on, the heat of the matter would slowly die down. Song Mingyuan's heavy fist would hit nothing. You would never have guessed that the old man really had the means to turn everything into mud in an instant. Qin Guang opened the door and saw Guoming, who had not had time to change his clothes, walking over. Let's go. Let's drain the mud now. Chapter 1032. Mud removal? Haven't we been doing it? Guoming couldn't understand what Qin Guang was trying to say. It wasn't easy for him to pacify the employees who witnessed Qin Guang's godly technique and told them not to add oil to the fire. However, he was actually more curious than anyone else. Before today, Guoming had been living in the world of ordinary people and had never thought about the existence of martial artists. So even if he was thinking about reporting Qin Guang, he couldn't hold back his curiosity and wanted to ask Qin Guang about the profundity of his flying technique. But it was obvious that Qin Guang didn't take it seriously at all. He just pulled Guoming and ran to the edge of the pool. Qin Guang smiled. My local god temple. Oh no, my little house hasn't been touched yet, right? Not yet, but a lot of employees suggested putting a statue in it just like you did. I'm a little tempted, but I'm afraid you won't like it, so I haven't agreed yet. Qin Guang. After the founding of the People's Republic, humans are no longer allowed to become spirits. You guys can't be superstitious like this. Guoming, before I met you I used to believe in science too. I didn't know the light Xing Xinka. Qin Guang shrugged. I can't explain it to you. Forget it, I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. Wait for an hour, the mud in the mud storage pool will be almost completely hardened. You just need to get people to fish it out. Also, the speed of the dry mud forming at the filter press will increase by at least 10 times. Be prepared. What about the things on the internet? Guoming asked again. Qin Guang shrugged. It doesn't matter, the news just broke out this afternoon. The reporters will probably start coming tomorrow morning or midnight at the earliest. Although the people have a lot of opinions, everything has to be based on evidence. Seeing is believing. It's impossible for Yang Ditsai to send us to heaven with just a video. Let's finish removing the mud tonight. Seeing Qin Guang's solemn vow, Guoming wanted to say something else was impossible, but his mind recalled the scene 7 days ago where the mud sank inexplicably, and his face immediately felt a burning pain. Forget it, who cares if it's scientific or not? Anyway, Qin Guang has the final say. If he said it would work, then it would definitely work. If you don't want to be slapped in the face or ridiculed by him, then just believe what he says. She didn't know if she was lucky or unlucky to have such a boss. On the other side, because of Yang Ditsai's real name report, Tongshan Industrial Factory, which had just settled down on the internet, quickly became a national hot spot again. In order to take advantage of this hot spot, even many outdoor streamers from the surrounding counties and even Wujing City brought their equipment straight to Tongshan and ran to set up equipment outside the water outlet. The names of these people's live stream rooms were also quite interesting. Outdoor host brings you to expose the shady scenes. Brother Ku, who is not afraid of power, seeks death and decrypts Qin Guang's sewage treatment plant. All kinds of live stream rooms with such titles emerged endlessly on major platforms. It was very lively. Humans die for wealth, birds die for food. Fame is money. Taking advantage of this hot spot to get attention, perhaps you can turn over a new leaf and become the master of the house. Who doesn't want to be rich? Even if Xiao Tsong had already tried to help Qin Guang ban these outdoor streamers from within bamboo, the effect was really terrible. At the same time, there were at least dozens of streamers from every household. Although Bamboo was the leader in the livestream platform, it couldn't control other companies. Because of this, Xiao Tsong had no choice but to ban 3 popular outdoor streamers from his own platform. It could be said that he had shed tears to behead Ma Su. Although Xiao Tsong's heart ached, he didn't regret it. Because he knew that Qin Guang's trust was more important than anything else. At this time he had to support Qin Guang even more. After the incident, even if the loyal Qin Guang casually gave him something in return, today's loss could be made back tenfold or even 100-fold. Unfortunately, there were too many livestream platforms. Xiao Tsong's goodwill was just a drop in the bucket. It still couldn't stop at least dozens of streamers from all major platforms from broadcasting at the same time. In a sense, since the rise of the livestream industry, this was the first time that such a large number of online streamers participated in an environmental inspection at the same time. This was a sign that the modern media industry had entered the new media era. The media industry, which was mainly based on television stations, was gradually moving towards the more free and flexible self-media. If local television stations wanted to send reporters, or if they wanted to broadcast the interview, they had to consider the policies and requirements of the higher authorities. Especially for this kind of sensitive environmental inspection, you couldn't just publish it as you pleased. You had to consider the direction of public opinion and the strategy of the higher authorities. If you made a public report without permission, it might feel good for a while to take advantage of the hot spot, but it was very likely that your whole family would be cremated. The dispatching and reporting of television stations had to strictly follow the rules and regulations. This caused the efficiency of traditional media to be low. The emerging self-media people who could be individuals as the main body had no such concerns at all. A mobile phone, a self-balancing PTZ, a face, a mouth, and an anchor account of a live broadcasting platform. This was their full range of belongings. They carried it and walked. They had super high mobility. They were barefoot and not afraid of wearing shoes. Once they smelled the smell of blood, they could immediately roll up their sleeves like sharks in the sea and swarm up in their cars. Even if it was like in the Bamboo platform, the live account was banned, they could go to other platforms to make a comeback. They could afford to lose, and they understood the truth that the law does not punish the masses. Because of this, at this moment in the national online world, the text reports about Tangshan Industrial Factory were brushing the screen again and again, complementing the live broadcast that was now open everywhere, and the heat of the whole matter continued to rise. Although after the emergency measures in the factory, through the addition of filters and other measures, the new mud leaking from the water outlet has been reduced a lot, but from time to time, 1 or 2 pieces of yellow or black mud will be carried out. In addition, along the direction of the water outlet along the Tangshan River all the way down, you can always find a lot of mud leaking from morning to afternoon. This was a solid hammer that couldn't be denied, and Xiaoguang Environmental Protection and Tangshan Industrial Factory were roasted on the fire. Expert Li and other members of the review team who had just left were also under great pressure at this time, but they couldn't do anything. If they returned at this time, although they could follow the public opinion, it was not in line with the rules and would offend Qin Guang to death. But if they didn't make a sound at all and just buried their heads in the sand, it would cause the authority of these people to be questioned and become a stain in their career history. Comrade Li sat in the room of the government guest house in Wujing City. He was particularly tormented and extremely embarrassed. When he was first appointed as the review team leader of Tangshan Industrial Factory, he didn't take it seriously at all. This was not the first time he had done this kind of thing. He had always been known as an executioner in the industry. It was precisely because of his authority and rigor that he was in charge of many investigations that were similar to the final judgment being handed down with a hammer. But this time, after Qin Guang got involved in Xiaoguang Environmental Protection, everything was different. Comrade Li didn't want to play favoritism or commit fraud. Even if he was panicking, he had the imperial sword of Old Man Jin. He intended to be like Bao Zheng wielding the dragon head guillotine. Even if you were of the privileged class, I would still behead you. But the final result was that he didn't have any evidence on the scene at all. No matter how sharp the dragon head guillotine was, it still had to be reasonable. In the end, he had no choice but to lead the team and leave dejectedly. But as soon as he left, trouble immediately arose, turning him into a pig looking in the mirror, or a mouse crawling into the bellows. He was in trouble both inside and outside. Old Li was about to cry. Why was his life so bitter? He also knew that it was definitely Tiansong Water playing tricks behind the scenes. If it had been another company, he could have personally pressured the other party to stop. But Tiansong Water was no small matter. Although it couldn't be said that its words carried enormous weight in the industry, it was still a behemoth that couldn't be avoided. Its network was complicated and it couldn't be easily offended. With no other choice, Old Li could only simply turn off his phone. He wouldn't answer anyone's call. I'll be an ostrich today. I don't care about anything. I'll do whatever I want. At worst, I won't take on this kind of hard work in the future. I'll go back to my University of Science and Technology to teach in peace. He couldn't understand what kind of magic Qin Guang had used to prevent him and the others from seeing the slightest bit of mud during the review. At this moment, the most pleased were probably the instigators behind this matter, Chief Engineer Yang Ditsai, and Song Ningyuan himself. Yang Ditsai happily hid in the Tangshan Hotel. He didn't dare go home. Only Song Ningyuan's people knew that he was hiding here. This morning, when he picked up Song Ningyuan's call, he immediately threw the other party 500,000 yuan in compensation and the promised safety guarantee to the other party, making him feel as if he was on cloud 9. He was depressed that he went for wool and came home shorn. At home, he was still being taken advantage of by his short-sighted wife. In the face of Song Ningyuan's olive branch, he saw the hope of counterattacking and killing Qin Guang. How could he not be happy? Although he was also afraid, the money in his hands was the most practical. He didn't believe that Qin Guang would want his life for this kind of thing. In addition, there were disadvantages to reporting under his real name, but there were also advantages. He put himself in the eye of the storm, and with the protection of Tiansong Water, Yang Ditsai didn't think that his life would be in danger. The higher he jumped, the safer he would be. The most dangerous place was the safest place. In this bright world there had to be morality. It was Qin Guang's own hands and feet that were not clean. Although he didn't know what methods he had used, the results showed that he was operating in the dark. He was using his power and status to harm the people of Tongshan City. I, Yang Ditsai, am the messenger of justice. I am not afraid of power. I put life and death aside. I represent morality. I stand on the side of reason. That's nothing. I have 200,000 yuan in my pocket now. When it's done, I still have 300,000 yuan. I also want you, Qin Guang, to lose all your reputation. You want me to regret it. I'll let you see who's the one regretting it. Yang Ditsai smiled proudly but accidentally touched the injury at the corner of his mouth, causing him to gasp in pain. He began to curse in his heart again. Mother****, those bastards were really ruthless. Fortunately, he dragged a few more people into the water. It was quite satisfying to let the bastards of the mechanical repair class slap themselves in the face. Today his real name report was a bit of a twist and turn. In the morning, as soon as he went downstairs, the mechanical repair class monitor who had secretly blocked the way rushed up from behind and hit him with a stick. Then he was punched in the face by those bastards. When Yang Ditsai saw that the situation was not good, he quickly threw out the terms that he had negotiated with Song Ningyuan. Then he made a phone call to Song Ningyuan in front of everyone. That was how he managed to avoid being beaten up so badly that he could not get up. Song Ningyuan didn't know that Yang Ditsai had called him while he was being beaten up. He only knew that Yang Ditsai had strengthened his own team in less than 10 minutes. Of course, he was happy to see the anti-Qin Guang team grow stronger. He immediately promised a little more treatment to the others. Although it was far less than Chief Engineer Yang, it was slightly more than the 2N bonus in Tongshan Factory. This difference was enough to make the mechanical repair class monitor and the others, who had long lost red eyes, decisively work for him. Yang Ditsai's efficiency also surprised Song Ningyuan. He felt that the former chief engineer of Tongshan Factory was a talent like Su Qin and Zhang Yi. He had dealt with 8 people in 10 minutes. What kind of operating ability did he have? Qin Guang was really blind. Didn't he know what was the most important thing in the 21st century? Talent, of course. As a result, in the morning, Yang Ditsai and the others secretly went to the water outlet of Tongshan Factory. As spies, Yang Ditsai, who understood technology and policy, naturally knew how to take photos of the evidence to make the effect of the best. An hour later, the few of them combined the videos they had taken and sent them to Song Ningyuan. As soon as Song Ningyuan received the materials, he immediately got the public relations department of Tiansong Water to start working. As the industry leader, Tiansong Water was very familiar with whether it was bleaching their own company or discrediting other companies. That was why they could ferment the matter to this point in just one afternoon. Song Ningyuan stood in front of the office window and looked at the sky outside. His eyes were focused on the south side of Tongshan City, and his mood had never been better. After being slapped in the face by Qin Guang countless times, Song Ningyuan could not help but feel aggrieved. Fortunately, he had finally seized the opportunity to counterattack. Let's see how you're going to deal with this. After all this trouble, you still want Xia Guang to continue operating Tongshan Factory? Dream on. I'm going to send you to jail. Even if you don't go to jail, I'm going to ruin your reputation. Qin Guang, now you know how powerful it is, don't you? Environmental protection isn't like your previous variety shows or movies. The waters here are deeper than you think. You're too naive. Brother, see, I'm right? Qin Guang can become famous because of his fame. It's all because of his own hype online. Let's give him a taste of his own medicine and take drastic measures. He really can't do anything about it. Behind Song Ningyuan, a young man in a suit said with a smile. Song Ningyuan turned back and patted this young man on the shoulder. Heezy, this idea of yours is indeed not bad. I'll praise you properly in front of your dad and mine later. Jing He grinned. Then I'll have to thank you, cousin. This young man was precisely Jing He, whom Qin Guang had not interacted with for a long time. Zheng He, the only son of the chairman of the New Radiance Corporation, Zheng Yunhao, was precisely the cousin of Song Ningyuan, the son of the chairman of the Tiansong Water Company, Song Qinxiu. Zheng He's mother, Song Qinqin, was precisely Song Qinxiu's younger sister. The reason why the Tiansong Water Company had been able to develop so well throughout the country these past few years was inextricably linked to the help and support of the leading livestock producer, the New Radiance Corporation. All of them were enterprises that had prospered in Great Tuan Province, and thus had quite a number of relations with each other. Just like Lu's Chemical Industry and Huangshan Corporation, it was also because the founders of these two large corporations had grown up together as brothers, that the younger generation Lu Fei and Zhong Bai were on good terms with each other. As for Zheng He, because of Wenwen's disappearance and Qin Guang's meteoric rise in school, he had long lost the thought of going against Qin Guang. But recently, Wenwen had returned to school again, and Zheng He's thoughts had been rekindled. However, Wenwen was even more indifferent and impatient to him than before. Of course, Zheng He would vent his anger on Qin Guang, but he had never had a good opportunity to discuss Qin Guang, nor could he play the childish game of finding people to beat up Qin Guang like he used to. Just as he was worrying about what to do, he happened to hear Song Ningyun gnashing his teeth and talking about Qin Guang during the family gathering. The two cousins, who shared a common hatred for the enemy, immediately hit it off and came up with this plan to take drastic measures against Qin Guang. Now that the plan had succeeded and the general trend had been set, Qin Guang would definitely be badly battered by now. How could the two brothers suppress their complacent mood? However, at this moment, what they did not expect was that Qin Guang had returned to the Earth Temple and hung the heavenly Holy Grail on the water inlet. Following Qin Guang's order, pieces of hardened mud that looked like the bucket of a washing machine were rapidly falling off the belt filter press. In addition, there were even more pieces of mud that were clearly as hard as bricks and would sink no matter how one looked at it. They inexplicably defied gravity and floated on the large ponds, especially the stabilizing ponds in front of the water outlet. The workers in the factory were too lazy to even use ladles for dung. Instead, they used fishing nets and sacks. They threw them into the water and pulled them up. Hard mud bricks were pulled up. At first, they had to use tanker trucks to transport the mud. Now it was different. Container trucks, tricycles, and so on came. They filled up the trucks and pulled them away, exploding the earthen god with soy sauce. He was just that rude and unreasonable. "You're talking to me about mud? Sorry, I only have bricks here. I don't have mud." The first to realize that something was wrong were the online anchors outside. They were having a good time ridiculing, saying that for the sake of justice for the people, they double-clicked 666 followed and sent a wave of gifts. In the end, as they clapped, the mud in the water outlet disappeared. The water became clear and translucent under everyone's gaze. On the other side, all kinds of vehicles filed in and out of the Tongshan industrial factory. It was in full swing. Here they were facing the pitch-black night, blowing the cold autumn wind. Their hearts were burning. They thought about the outdoor anchors who had finally gotten hot, but their hearts quickly became ice-cold. What happened to the real name report? What happened to the breaking news? The video you guys posted on the internet was so shocking. You even said that you would have to crazily queue for at least a few days. But now, everything was gone. You guys messed with us. Chapter 1033. The group of online anchors couldn't help but grit their teeth. They wouldn't get up early if there was no profit. They spared no effort to drive here, braving the cold wind and the dark night, holding a flashlight, not afraid of hardship or tiredness. Wasn't it for a meteoric rise? But now he didn't even get a single thing. He worked so hard, but all his efforts were in vain. How could they not be angry? How could they not be shocked? How could they not be angry? The people in the factory didn't care how shocked the people outside were. The mud suddenly became easy to fish, so they didn't need so much manpower, and the temporary workers in the factory lost their jobs. The drivers who only cared about hauling the mud didn't know how powerful it was. They just waited under the pool for the bricks to be thrown down from above. The ones who really knew how powerful it was were the employees standing by the pool in Guoming. However, humans were such unique creatures. As the saying goes, frogs are boiled in warm water. These employees had seen too many incredible things in the past few days, so they were particularly calm about the floating bricks, as if they were meant to be floating. Guoming walked around the factory the whole time, doing a good job of safety management according to Qin Guang's requirements. He only looked at Qin Guang in the Temple of the Earth, from time to time, thinking to himself that he really had to look at him in a different light. Guoming always knew that Qin Guang wasn't an ordinary person, but he really didn't expect him to become such an incredible person. Although Qin Guang didn't give him any explanation, Guoming could think with his toes that the floating mud in the factory was definitely Qin Guang's doing. Did he really become an immortal? Forget it, that wasn't important. What was important was that he had the ability to do what he said, and that was enough. This meant that there was absolutely no need to be afraid of working with him. Xia Guang Environmental Protection was in such a desperate situation, and Tongshan Industrial's coffin was almost covered with soil, but he could pull it back. It seemed that he wasn't joking, nor was he playing house. He really wasn't playing around. He really wanted to pull Xia Guang Environmental Protection and Tongshan Industrial back on the right track. He used his incredible ability. Looking at Qin Guang from afar, Guoming felt the blood in his heart gradually surge to the top of his head. Although I don't know what other trump cards you have, no matter what, I will fight with you to the end. Just like how we overturned Su Lijing together, this time we will make the impossible possible, and revive Xiaoguang Environmental Protection and Tongshan Industrial Factory. Is this guy trying to scare us on purpose? Hua Ling, who was supposed to be asleep in the dormitory, unknowingly stood beside Guoming. Zhong Yu stretched lazily. I really thought I was done for in the afternoon, but he saved me. Hua Ling snorted. You made me nervous for nothing. I even called Teacher Zhua specifically because of the mud discharge. How's Xiao Zhua doing overseas recently? Guoming asked curiously. Hua Ling shrugged. What else can he do? He's just a researcher in the laboratory. But Teacher Zhua is amazing and knowledgeable. Even if he's a researcher in a world-renowned laboratory, he won't be buried. He's already a small leader of a project team now. Guoming nodded, then looked in Qin Guang's direction. It's quite a pity. I thought Xiao Zhua and Qin Guang would end up together. They were so affectionate back then, I was interested. Tisk tee, Teacher Gua, you're starting to gossip? Hua Ling teased. Zhong Yu also said strangely, actually I think so too. Hua Ling interrupted the others. Who can say for sure when it comes to relationships? Besides, when have you seen Qin Guang and Teacher Zhua break up? It's just that one of them is in China and the other is in America. They're thousands of miles apart and out of reach. At most they can only chat online. Zhong Yu felt that there was something wrong with Hua Ling's words. After a while she reacted. Hey, you're really shameless. Out of reach. Hua Ling laughed. You don't understand, do you? If they didn't have an affair, would Qin Guang have confessed to Teacher Zhua at the press conference? Also, you don't know, but Qin Guang bought a Mercedes-Benz for Teacher Zhua. Teacher Zhua isn't a vain person. If she didn't completely treat Qin Guang as one of her own, would she have accepted his car? Zhong Yu was shocked. Really? Teacher Zhua's Mercedes-Benz E400 was bought by Qin Guang for her? Guoming also had a face full of gossip. He pricked up his ears to listen. Hua Ling couldn't keep her mouth shut. What else? Where do you think Teacher Zhua got the money to buy such an expensive car? Also, the money Teacher Zhua used to go abroad was... Cough cough. Qin Guang's cough came from afar, but only Hua Ling heard it. It sounded like thunder in her ears, startling Hua Ling, a big sister from the northeast. She hurriedly looked in Qin Guang's direction anxiously. She knew that he was unhappy that she had said too much. She timidly hid her face. I won't say any more. I'm really tired. I'm going back to the dorm to sleep. Turning around, Hua Ling was still feeling indignant for Zhuo Jingxi. She secretly cursed Qin Guang for being so heartless. He only knew how to flirt with other women all day long. He didn't even care about Teacher Zhua, who was far away in the United States. She knew that in the past 6 months, although Qin Guang would contact Zhuo Jingxi from time to time, he had never thought of going to the United States to visit her. Although Teacher Zhua never complained about these things on the phone, it was hard to hide his loneliness. Hua Ling thought to herself, Teacher Zhua has a good temper. If it were me, if my boyfriend in China treated me like this, I would have jumped up and become hostile. In fact, Qin Guang was also thinking about what Hua Ling said. He also knew that he might have done something wrong, but in the past 6 months he had been living like he was in a war every day. It wasn't that he didn't miss Zhuo Jingxi, and it wasn't that he didn't want to see her, but it was really hard for him to get away. Just like this time, if Teacher Zhuo was by his side, it might have been a lot easier. Although she was only a PhD student on the surface, she was also the last disciple of Professor Xu Lirong. Especially in the past 6 months, she had published many papers in foreign SCI journals and had become a hot international expert in the field of photocatalysis. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to snatch the throne of laboratory director in the extremely competitive foreign laboratories. Teacher Zhu's knowledge couldn't be faked. Unfortunately, they were in different corners of the world. The world was too big. It was not easy to move and travel. Forget it, he didn't want to think about things that couldn't put out a nearby fire. Qin Guang gathered his thoughts and continued to release the earth elemental ability of the earth sauce exploder, forcibly compressing the sludge. At this time, the concentration of earth elemental power around his body was maintained at 0.1 units for a long time. Qin Guang even felt that after these days of crazy tossing, even after a period of time, the earth elemental power around the world wouldn't be able to easily return to its previous concentration. This was the effect he wanted. Later, when he was happy, he would crazily absorb it again so that the world would forever lack earth and he would be the only earth emperor. Time passed little by little, and when the sky turned white again, the cheers of success finally came from the Tangshan Industrial Factory, which had been working hard for nearly 24 hours. The workers excitedly threw their hats straight into the sky, and an unprecedented sense of accomplishment enveloped everyone's hearts. Success, they finally succeeded. After pulling out a total of 100 trucks, the sludge that had accumulated in the Tangshan Industrial Factory for many years was completely cleared. With the current concentration of pollutants in the pool, even if there was no effect at all, it wouldn't easily exceed the limit without a month of accumulation. Guoming, who hadn't slept all night, immediately gathered everyone together and Qin Guang gave a speech. Qin Guang waved his hand again and everyone was given 2 months' salary and bonus. Then only a few people who had a good rest last night were left on duty, and the rest were all on leave. The outdoor anchors outside the factory had been tortured for a whole night, and now more than half of them had left. Those who were left behind saw the people in the factory cheering and jumping back home, and finally resigned themselves to their fate. Well, this time was really unlucky and they completely missed out. After standing guard for a whole night, they didn't even get a ready-made fart, let alone mud. The previous real name reporting materials were no longer fresh. Even if there was some evidence left along the Tangshan River, it wasn't enough to bring down Xiaoguang environmental protection, and it couldn't even resonate with the public. It was still the same thing, evidence. Evidence. Everything needed evidence. Someone else's factory occasionally made a mistake and some sludge came out, but that wasn't a big deal and they just had to pay a fine. They didn't do it uncontrollably and it was just a normal production accident, and it wouldn't cause irreparable consequences. Without fresh and hot video footage, there was no way to prove that they were continuously discharging sludge. Then the hot news you posted online would become rootless duckweed without any evidence. Now that they were all on leave, there was no need to look inside and there was definitely nothing left. Qin Guang and Guoming stood together at the entrance of the factory, looking meaningfully at the last 7 or 8 outdoor anchors who had packed up and left, their eyes flashing with a cold light. Sorry, you wanted to eat my meat but you only got to smell my fart. I don't have any other skills but I'm especially good at settling scores. Qin Guang gritted his teeth and said to Guoming, we didn't even get a good night's sleep, we can't just let this go. What are you going to do? Qin Guang thought about it. I'll find someone to settle scores first and take care of all these people who followed the show. Song Ningyun messed with me with public opinion, and I'll use the public opinion he wants to achieve our goal. What do you mean? We took the blame and now we've successfully cleared our names. Doesn't that prove Xiaoguang's environmental protection ability? Since we have the ability to meet the standards, then we have to properly discuss the operating period of Tangshan Industrial Factory. Guoming's face lit up. Qin Guang's words made sense. Qin Guang said again, of course these are all minor details, our top priority is to think of a way. I'll try one last time to see if I can improve the process, and if it really doesn't work we'll immediately start the reconstruction plan. Guoming nodded heavily, you'll still have to spend money on this. Qin Guang waved his hand indifferently, it doesn't matter if I spend money or not, since I'm involved in this of course I'll do it as low as possible. Because the Tangshan Industrial Factory incident ruined my reputation, I have to climb back up from where I fell, I have to prove myself again here. Didn't others say I was corrupted? Didn't they say I didn't care about the lives of the common people now that I've become part of the privileged class? Then I'll burn my money to do something, and let them see how I care about the lives of the common people. I'll definitely make up for the mistakes that Xiaoguang has made all these years. How can I let Song Ningyuan do something that can earn me money, my reputation and my merit? I just want to know those people who scolded me so hard yesterday, do their faces hurt? Not only will I make their faces hurt, I'll make their flesh hurt too. Qin Guang's thinking was simple: if a tiger doesn't show his power, people will really think he's a sick cat. Ever since he dealt with Zhuo Wei and settled accounts with the media that had slandered him, Qin Guang hadn't waved his butcher knife for a long time, so many media people and marketing accounts forgot the pain after the scars healed. Or perhaps others felt that he was different from the past, that he had changed from barefooted to wearing shoes, and was no longer as violent as before, paying more attention to the public's influence in his words and actions, so he wouldn't appear to be so vengeful. Others might be tired and want to sleep, but Qin Guang could bear it. After letting Guoming go to sleep, Qin Guang sat in his own office in the office building, making phone calls one after another. At the headquarters of Tianguang Corporation, especially the public relations and publicity department headed by Lu Xiaoyang, were bored to death recently. Although the publicity department of Tianguang Corporation was responsible for the movie Women and other promotions of Qin Guang's solo piano album, this amount of work wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of the industry elite, Comrade Xiao Lu. Although he had turned over a new leaf, Comrade Xiao Lu was once an industry elite that was highly regarded by China's #1 paparazzi, Zhuo Wei. What Lu Xiaoyang was really good at was this kind of offensive or defensive game of public opinion. It was really a waste of his talent to let him do the same thing as others, doing online publicity step by step. With Qin Guang's call, it was a chance for him to show off his abilities. In less than half a day, all the major media outlets that followed the trend of slandering Qin Guang online yesterday, regardless of whether they were media outlets or official media outlets, were all served with lawyers' letters. The outdoor anchors who were the most active last night were even worse off, as the lawyers' letters were sent to their respective platforms. Although the anchors were only independent individuals, the live broadcasting companies that provided them with platforms couldn't just run away. Once the lawyers' letters arrived, these platform companies finally remembered the various misdeeds of Qin Guang in the past, and without a doubt, they immediately sacrificed themselves to save the king. If it was just sacrificing themselves to save the king, it wouldn't be a big deal. If one company failed, they could just move to another. However, Tianguang Corporation's lawyers' letters were sent to the masses. Other than Bamboo Live, who took the initiative to wave the butcher's knife, all the major platforms in the industry more or less had a hand in it last night. Everyone who saw the lawyer's letter had a share and no one could escape. The end result was that these outdoor anchors who had more or less gained some popularity, encountered a situation where they were banned from all the platforms overnight. They had suddenly become vagrants with nowhere to go. Their dreams and lives suddenly had nowhere to put them. Although there were many small and medium-sized platforms that they could choose from, they were all paradise for pornographic broadcasting, and there was no place for them to stand. The nightmare came so suddenly and violently that these anchors, who had worked hard all night without any results, were not mentally prepared. While they were still in their dreams, they suddenly received a call from the original platform's management. The termination notice came so suddenly, like a thunderbolt. Even if they had thousands of regrets in their hearts and should not have braced themselves to rub off on the hot topic so easily, it seemed that it was still a little too late. At the same time, many of the media outlets that had received favors from the Tiansong Water Group changed their target and switched to publishing news articles on Qin Guang's side. In fact, the media people were such fence-sitters. Whoever had milk was their mother, and they would speak up for whoever had the bigger fist. According to Qin Guang's own style of doing things, he was afraid that he would really let these media outlets go to court. However, in the end he still listened to Lu Xiaoyang's advice. No matter how big or hard one's fist was, they still had to leave something for others to eat. As the saying goes, pen and knife is black and white is white. If you really made the relationship so stiff, others could just change to a new platform or account and change their ways to slander you. You wouldn't be able to do anything about it. The lawyer's letter looked intimidating, but in essence, it was just a greeting. As for those unlucky outdoor anchors, Qin Guang had no intention of letting them go. It was not that he bullied the weak and was afraid of the strong, but that other media people only made groundless accusations on the internet. The harm and threat to him were far less than the anchors who directly went to the Tongshan factory's water outlet. If he hadn't acted quickly and used his special ability to get rid of all the mud in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable if these anchors had broadcast the mud in front of the national audience. If he really gave these people a real hammer, the reputation that Qin Guang had worked hard to accumulate for a long time was very likely to be pulled down to the bottom. Environmental protection was not entertainment. It was a matter of life and death. It was a pain point that ordinary people absolutely could not touch. Xiaoguang Environmental Protection and Tongshan Industrial Factory were at fault, but the root cause was the incompetent boss Xiao's fault. Qin Guang was just an unlucky scapegoat who accidentally got involved. He added medicine with the intention of getting away with it, but his method would not bring more harm to Tongshan City. As long as the mud could be disposed of in time, it was in line with the nature of environmental protection, turning the soluble pollutants in the water body into solid waste that was easier to dispose of. Whether it was a white cat or a black cat, it was a good cat if it could catch mice. Biochemical treatment was the treatment of pollutants. Chemical treatment combined with physical treatment was also a way to remove pollutants. If Qin Guang was willing to invest this capital, even if he only added medicine from now on, as long as the water could meet the standards, as long as he could find a unit to receive the sludge, it could not be said that Tongshan Industrial Factory's operation did not meet the standards. Therefore, what Qin Guang did this time seemed not so good on the surface, but in a sense it was reasonable and compliant. As boss Xiao's scapegoat, he also had a hard life. After all, it was 170 million yuan in cash. There was no reason to give it away just like that. No one's money came from the wind, and Qin Guang's efforts to protect himself were reasonable. But in the eyes of the ordinary people who didn't understand the profession, the truth was unforgivable. The people just felt that if you added medicine you were in the wrong and couldn't be reasoned with. Therefore, even if the matter had been exposed, Qin Guang definitely couldn't admit it. Today he wanted to use Song Ningyuan's method to counter him. Didn't you say that Xiaoguang Environmental Protection was incompetent? Didn't you say that Xiaoguang Environmental Protection could only add medicine to get away with it? Then the problem is, where is the evidence that I added medicine? Where's my mud? You shot a video of more than 10 minutes and said that I added medicine randomly? Who knows if you've added a special skill? If what you said is true, then where's your new evidence? It's just a video of a real name report and embellished text speculation. It's not enough. So, since we've been the scapegoat for the past 2 days, we have to have a good talk. Qin Guang had to take a stand and show a stronger attitude to continue managing Xiaoguang Environmental Protection. At the same time, he had to take this opportunity to clear Xiaoguang Environmental Protection's name and regain the public's confidence in Xiaoguang Environmental Protection's management of Tongshan Industrial Plant. Regardless of how the negotiations would develop in the future, it was time to take a stand. However, media relations were also a field of study, and everyone had their own specialties. Qin Guang didn't have the time to ask and manage everything. Fortunately, Lu Xiaoyang was especially good at this. Qin Guang only needed to set a tone, and Lu Xiaoyang would be the one to plan the specific content of the press release. That afternoon, Lu Xiaoyang's meticulously prepared press release counterattacked, engulfing all the major media outlets. With a momentum even fiercer than Song Ningyuan's yesterday, it swept through the online world in an instant. Yesterday the public was still scolding Qin Guang, but after seeing the new reports, especially after Qin Guang arranged for the pools to be auctioned and sold on the spot, the situation suddenly reversed. No matter how the people Song Ningyuan found talked about it on the internet, it was not as good as a video compilation, and they even gave you a sign saying what time it was. What are you slandering? Isn't the operation of the pool fine? The public opinion on the internet quickly turned into the following. We were wrong. We shouldn't have questioned Brother Quan Quan. He's a good person. We were used. We were so easily incited. We've lost our minds. We're retarded. We owe Brother Quan Quan a movie ticket. If you also feel ashamed, you can pre-order a ticket for heroin. That's right, we have no other way to compensate him. He can only return him a movie ticket. When Qin Guang woke up in the evening, he didn't realize that the public opinion had become that everyone owed Brother Quan Quan a movie ticket. He was also shocked. Obviously, he cared more about the reputation of Tongshan Industrial Factory. Why did these brothers want to return his movie ticket? Forget it. Anyway, it's my benefit. Don't care about it. It's always good to have money in my pocket. Even Mr. Li, who had been guarding the 5 capitals, was dumbfounded. He never expected that Qin Guang would be able to turn things around so easily and take the initiative. There were more and more things he couldn't figure out. Yes, Qin Guang must have added drugs. Then why didn't the sludge surface when he and others reviewed it? Why did it come up as soon as he and others left? Why was it that as soon as the news came out on the internet, his mud immediately disappeared into thin air? I may have reviewed a fake sewage treatment plant. Forget it. In short, this is definitely a good thing for me. Old Li's reputation has been preserved. As for the two brothers Song Ningyuan and Zheng He, they were both dumbfounded. They were all dumbfounded in the office. Chapter 1034. Once again he averted the danger. No, he took advantage of the attention caused by the public opinion storm to take the opportunity to throw out a more resolute attitude. I have been counterattacked by him. Although policies have to pay attention to laws and regulations, they have to consider public opinion, especially the environmental protection industry, which is closely related to the national economy and the people's livelihood. Whether an environmental protection company can continue to survive steadily has a great relationship with the company's reputation. Yesterday's storm of public opinion did not cause any harm and trouble to Qin Guang and his Xiaoguang environmental protection. Instead, it became a boost for him. The conscience of a private entrepreneur. Why did Qin Guang take the risk to set foot in the environmental protection industry? Environmental protection rules the world. Stars do environmental protection, easy money and difficult money. Qin Guang interview. Why did I apply for environmental science as an undergraduate? From a scapegoat to a reversal of the situation. What does Qin Guang want? There is no magic in environmental protection. Reaching the standard is justice. Why can Xiaoguang environmental protection come back from the dead? Different professions are different mountains, but the omnipotent Superman can cross the mountains, saving Xiaoguang environmental protection. Such positive press releases appeared in the media and were sent to Song Ningyuan by the Public Relations Department of Tiansong Water Group. It was like a fierce slap in his face. What made Song Ningyuan feel most flustered was the very strong will and attitude expressed between the lines by Qin Guang through these press releases. Unlike before when he accidentally became the receiver, now that the matter had become big, he had also escorted Xiaoguang environmental protection to pass the review. His position was corrected and his attitude was clearer. He wanted to loudly tell everyone that he, Qin Guang, was here and he was determined to take care of this matter. Previously, there had still been people who had taken him interfering in the Xiaoguang Environmental Protection Agency as a joke. Those of higher levels had thought that he was just playing around, just having a moment of playfulness and not taking it seriously, thinking that they could use other methods to make up for it to make him feel satisfied. But now Qin Guang's attitude was even clearer. I think I can manage Xiaoguang environmental protection well, and I think I can prove that I can make Tangshan Industrial Factory meet the standards. Qin Guang was no longer the hot-headed Tsing University student who could be easily bullied by others. He had already proven his worth and status, and he was inextricably linked to China's top officials. Therefore his attitude was extremely important. Whether it was to the ordinary people or to the higher-ups of Huaxia, it was the same. Now his grip was getting tighter and tighter. Song Ningyuan knew that it would be more and more difficult for him to let go, and the price he would have to pay would be greater and greater. Perhaps he could really loosen the hearts of some of the higher-ups and turn them to support what he did in Tangshan City. Song Ningyuan frowned deeply. He had no choice but to put away his contempt and ridicule and face this matter with a more cautious attitude. Damn it, he seized the opportunity to turn the tables. If it goes on like this, you might really end up empty-handed. Zheng He had originally wanted to see Qin Guang make a fool of himself today, but he didn't expect to see Song Ningyuan, who was in a terrible fix. He rushed to Song Ningyuan's computer to see the situation, and then he also understood the situation and shouted in shock. Song Ningyuan waved his hand, feeling a headache coming on. All right, Heezy, don't worry about this. Go back to your school. Song Ningyuan wasn't too happy that his cousin had seen a joke. We can't just let it go like this. Although Zheng He was still studying, he had been more or less involved in the company's business. He knew that Tangshan Industrial Factory was the key layout of Tiansong Water Group, and it was the benchmark project for Tiansong's expansion from civil urban wastewater treatment to industrial wastewater treatment. If this matter was messed up, Song Ningyuan would suffer a great loss. Even if it was a family business, he would not be able to avoid blame, and at the same time, other shareholders would question his ability. There was even the possibility that Song Mingyuan's position in the company would be shaken. From urban wastewater treatment to industrial projects was a big expansion direction, representing the total investment direction of Tiansong Water Group in the next few years or even a decade. Currently, Song Mingyuan was relying on his father Song Qinxiu to hold on to the key to this new direction. However, if things were not handled well, it was possible that his power would be transferred to other professional managers to run the business. Song Mingyuan nodded. Of course I know. Of course I can't let it go. After saying that, Song Mingyuan got up and called his secretary to make arrangements. He finally planned to go to Tangshan personally. Since he had been beaten black and blue by Qin Guang and had no strength to fight back, he might as well try to fight him head-on. He had to make him retreat. Qin Guang, didn't you also express your determination? Similarly, I'll show you my determination to get Tangshan Industrial Factory. I have to make you understand that this piece of meat isn't that delicious. There are bones in it. Even if you swallow it, it will get stuck in your throat. I have to make you think clearly. Your best choice is to take my compensation and leave, then cut your losses. Are you kidding? Tangshan Industrial Factory didn't meet the standards for 8 years. Do you really think it's that simple? I know you can get the Lu Group's water company to work with, but so what? The situation of Tangshan Industrial Plant is very special, and the wastewater treatment is very difficult. If anyone can rebuild it and run it up to the standard, there is no reason for our Tiansong Water Group to stand out among several competing units. We are gods invited by the local government of Tangshan City. What does Tiansong Water Group rely on? It's the huge technical consultant team standing behind us. We have the technical ability to lead the country and even the world. Even if you invest hundreds of millions to complete the reconstruction, you don't have the diamond to do this porcelain work. You still can't meet the standards. Of course, Song Mingyuan was not relying on rootless duckweed. This was also the real reason why he was still confident in snatching food from the tiger's mouth. On the other side, the local government of Tangshan City also experienced a torturous day, but fortunately, it landed smoothly again. If it wasn't for the fact that they were still afraid and Qin Guang didn't have an appointment, the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth leaders of Tangshan City would probably take the initiative to discuss the next step with Qin Guang. Do you want to rebuild it or what? Please give me a straightforward answer. Although adding medicine is good, it's not a long-term solution. We still have to rebuild it. Qin Guang wasn't in a hurry to continue expressing his position. His words had already spread and old Master Jin didn't call to make things difficult for him. This was good news. It meant that the old master's attitude toward him had changed. Later, Qin Guang thought about it and felt that the review team had inexplicably extended to 7 consecutive days of trial. The random sampling method was a little too crazy and targeted. It wasn't hard to guess that the old master might have secretly made things difficult for him. At that time, old Master Jin's attitude was very clear. He felt that there was no need for him to get involved in this muddy water. He wanted to make Xia Guang environmental protection fail and then compensate him from other places. However, Qin Guang couldn't blame anyone. After all, they had good intentions and guaranteed that it was worth hundreds of millions. The old master just didn't understand his determination and didn't want him to get into trouble because of this matter. In this regard, Qin Guang was also quite embarrassed. In everyone's eyes, his best choice was, of course, to let go. He could extort at least tens of millions from Tiansong Water Group and then go to the old master to complain. Last time, when he resigned from his position as the director, the old master made the Shanghai Financial Group take the blame and gave him $1 billion. This time he lost the sewage treatment plant. Even if it wasn't $1 billion, it was easy to cash out 200 to 300 million. Moreover, a few days ago he got a huge bargain. He took away Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage's management company for $1. If it was someone else who received this treatment, they would probably look in the mirror and think carefully about whether they were the son of destiny. Qin Guang was too embarrassed to tell the truth to old Master Jin. He didn't let go because he felt uncomfortable. He wanted to save face and suffer. He didn't like Song Mingyuan. Even if he had to spend money, he didn't want Song Mingyuan to take advantage of him. It sounded noble, but it was actually that simple. It was such a great dream. Maybe it was a little, but more than that, it was an obsession in his heart that he couldn't tell others. Qin Guang wasn't a standard businessman. He couldn't weigh the pros and cons like ordinary businessmen. Unlike businessmen who haggled over every penny, he cared more about his own feelings. However, he couldn't say this out loud. Otherwise, he would become a laughingstock, especially the group of old masters in Yanjing. When he resigned from his position as the director of the Guangding General Administration, Qin Guang had already explained it to the old masters in the meeting. Whether it was in the business world or the government, the logic was the same. That's your world and I can't be someone like you. It was rare for Qin Guang to have some free time, and he could finally have a good night's rest in the hotel. The next day he woke up early and went straight to the factory. When he arrived at the factory, he saw Guoming and a few other workers moving things into his temple. "What are you guys moving?" he asked as he walked closer. Seeing this, Guoming quickly moved sideways to block his line of sight. Qin Guang pushed Guoming away. "Stop blocking. Are you going to block here forever?" "Fine." He finally saw what it was. He wondered where these people got this plaster statue. That's right. It was a standard plaster statue of the Lord of the Earth. It was just that this local god's face looked slightly familiar, and there was a 70 to 80% resemblance to his own facial features. However, there was a beard underneath and he looked like a middle-aged version of himself. "Old Gua, I suddenly feel that Tianguang Corporation is still lacking a guard. You can't spend the factory's money like this. It's only been a day and you guys have to spend at least a few thousand to make this." Guoming chuckled. "Mr. Qin, you're thinking too much. This was made by our employees. We didn't use the company's money. Also, we only spent the cost price. It was made by Xiao Feng's father from the production department. You probably don't know this, but Xiao Feng's father is famous in the city for making plaster statues. He's especially good at making land statues like the god of wealth. He's an experienced craftsman." "I know that guy." Qin Guang remembered. Xiao Feng was the guy who first called him the Lord of the Earth yesterday. Guoming saw that Qin Guang didn't seem to be angry, so he asked the others to carefully move the plaster statue inside. He said, "Actually, we didn't mean anything by putting it here. Isn't it auspicious? Anyway, the house has already been built. There's no use for it. It's weird to leave it empty." Qin Guang snorted. "I understand that, but why does it look like me? I think Xiao Feng might want to guard the door too." "Mr. Qin. I'm innocent. This is a coincidence. It's definitely a coincidence." As he spoke, Xiao Feng, who was especially superstitious yesterday, suddenly appeared from the side. Qin Guang put on a straight face, looking like he wanted to strangle someone to death. He deliberately scared this troublemaker. "Then why don't you give me a reasonable explanation? Tell me, did you place my photo in front of your father and make him copy it?" Xiao Feng waved his hands. "No, I really didn't. But this does have something to do with you, Mr. Qin." Qin Guang raised his hands. "You're 3 sentences away from our Tongshan factory's main door. When I went home last night, I told my father that I needed a Lord of the Earth, but I didn't say that I was in a hurry, nor did I say what kind of person I wanted. Later he dragged me to drink. I drank a little too much and went straight to sleep. In the end, when I woke up this morning, I saw this statue in my yard. At that time I saw that it looked like you, Mr. Qin, and I was so scared that I almost cried. I asked my father how he got it like this. He said that he was watching the highlights of the Guinness World Fair, and at the same time he used a mold that he had made before to sculpt the face of a master sculptor who was especially good at it. He said that the master was terrifying. He could carve flowers on the tip of a pencil with a small knife. He was the idol of people like him. He was a god." Then I quickly looked at the plate. "Isn't that you, Mr. Qin?" Qin Guang. Fine, he remembered this incident. Wasn't it what happened when he participated in the Guinness World Fair and pretended to sharpen pencils? Xiao Feng said it in a very convincing manner. Qin Guang could tell from his expression that he was telling the truth. He really wasn't messing with him on purpose. "I hesitated for a long time whether I should move this plaster statue over. It would be a pity if I just threw it away. My father really liked the mold that he carved while drunk yesterday. My father said that this was the best portrait he had carved in the past 10 years. Look, Mr. Qin, these eyebrows, these bright and spirited eyes, this handsome nose bridge. It's called a plaster statue, but it's actually a work of art. When I get back, I'll get my father to add a layer of anti-corrosive varnish. Can be preserved for decades or even centuries. This is comparable to the statue of Guandi in the famous Guandi Temple in Tongshan City." The more Xiao Feng spoke, the more excited he became. "Mr. Qin, let me say something rebellious. The gods in the heavens believe in it, and if they don't, they won't. We villagers pay attention to this. If Tangshan factory can operate stably under the protection of this statue, then wouldn't this statue ensure the safety of Tangshan City? This is the true lord of the land. In a few years, when our Tangshan factory does well, people will remember our good deeds and come here to worship this handsome statue of the land. Although this statue looks similar to you, Mr. Chen, once it stands here, it won't just be your problem. This place, our factory, is the dragon vein of Tangshan City. The statue of the land suppresses the dragon vein here, so it can't be touched. Most importantly, this statue of the land is really handsome, right? Qin Guang immediately retreated in defeat. Handsome, it's indeed handsome. What you said makes sense. How about this, I'll go take a stroll in the laboratory first. He was practically running away in panic. As Xiao Fang spoke, his face glowed with incomparable sincerity, as if moving the statue of the land would cause the entire Tangshan city to shake. After walking far away, he turned back to look. The statue of the land had completely placed Qin Guang's face in. Xiao Fang took out 3 incense sticks from nowhere. Guoming was at the side taking out a lighter to light the incense for him. A few seconds later, those bastards actually knelt down in unison. Qin Guang had goosebumps all over his body. Forget it, forget it. Out of sight, out of mind. Yo, what a rare guest. You finally remembered to come to our laboratory to pay your respects to the researchers. The moment Qin Guang pushed open the laboratory door, Hua Ling, who was holding a test tube to pour the medicine, squinted her eyes and teased him when she saw him. Zhong Yu was fiddling with the water bath pot. It looked like she was preparing to test the total phosphorus. Qin Guang randomly found a chair and sat down. Senior Hualing, look at what you're saying. Haven't I been tormented enough for the past few days? Hualing chuckled. Who cares? Just sit there like a statue of a god. I feel like you're about to become an immortal. Qin Guang flipped open the experiment notebook on the desk next to him and casually flipped through it. If I really become an immortal, I'll give Senior Hualing a spot to follow me to the heavens. Zhong Yu covered her mouth and laughed. Hualing rolled her eyes. Who wants to follow you to the heavens? There are only old immortals in the heavens. There are no handsome young men. You should just take Teacher Zhuo to the heavens. Qin Guang did not dare to respond to Hualing's words. That he changed the topic. Oh right, you're still working on photocatalysts, right? How is it? Are there any substantial results? Can it be used in our Tangshan factory? Zhong Yu plugged in the water bath pot and turned back to sit next to Qin Guang. Sai, let's not talk about this anymore. This time Hualing and I actually came here to verify the results of our previous work with Teacher Zhuo's project team and show you our data. Zhong Yu opened the Excel file on the computer. The screen was densely packed with data that the two of them had worked on in the past few months. It was generally divided into the following categories. Pure photocatalysts for reducing COD, ammonia, nitrogen, and total phosphorus. Well, it was almost equal to 0. After photocatalysts catalyzed the breaking of macromolecular chains, the biochemical removal rate of the same kind of sewage in the pilot simulator had a slight effect, but it was not particularly obvious. Photocatalysts had almost no effect on the biochemical effect of phenol pollutants. Photocatalysts had almost no effect on the biochemical effect of ester pollutants. Photocatalysts had almost no effect on the removal of heavy metals from precipitated floccules. Qin Guang was too lazy to look at the data one by one. He only glanced at the removal rate that the two of them had converted. It was quite disappointing. Isn't this completely useless? Hualing finished adding the medicine and shrugged. Of course. Do you think it's so easy to develop a new kind of photocatalyst? Cabbages? Teacher Zhuo pondered in the laboratory for so long, and several other project teams worked together to barely develop a few stable structures. It's a pity that according to the results of Zhong Yu and my on-site verification, it's still a long way from practical use. Zhong Yu said, you can't say that. Every new structure of a photocatalyst represents a new possibility. What we're doing now may seem ineffective, but maybe it will have a miraculous effect when it comes to certain special pollutants. Or maybe in industrial production, it will have a miraculous effect on the catalytic synthesis of certain chemical products. It can't be said that the new structure is meaningless and useful. It's just that we have to spend more time and energy to find the right use. It's just like when Edison invented the electric light. Before that, who would have thought that tungsten could be used as a filament for electric lights? Qin Guang applauded. What Zhong Yu said makes sense. Hua Ling crossed her legs. What's the use of that? Just like Zhong Yu and I, we spent several months of effort, but in the end, we only verified that our new structure can't be used in the complex sewage environment of Tangshan factory. What we're doing now is to verify that the filament can be used in one of the thousands of elimination methods before tungsten. The real thing that can be remembered and the real result is always the last step. Everyone knew about Edison, but who knew about the failed researchers in the Edison project team? The elimination method we're doing is the most laborious and the most meaningless. Qin Guang couldn't refute this. Looking at the densely packed experimental data that the two of them had listed, it was indeed quite laborious. Every time they verified it, they had to compare the concentration of pollutants before and after the test, and they had to control the necessary conditions of the laboratory to a very precise degree. Eliminating all interference factors just to find a slight difference between the conditions with and without the photocatalyst, they had to spend several days or even a month testing hundreds or even thousands of data. This kind of work was boring and lacked a sense of accomplishment. Zhong Yu was much more optimistic. But as long as we can find something useful, for example in the pharmaceutical synthesis section, if we can increase the product yield by 1%, that would be a profit of hundreds of millions of US dollars. Or in the field of environmental protection, if we can increase the removal rate by 1% and save 1% of operating costs, that would be a profit of hundreds of millions of US dollars. Hua Ling shrugged. Anyway, with what we've done so far, it's hopeless. We'll have to see if Teacher Zhua can bring back some surprises from the United States. After saying that, Hua Ling suddenly covered her mouth. She realized that she had spilled the beans. Qin Guang was slightly surprised. Teacher Zhua is coming back? Hua Ling waved her hands. Don't ask me, I don't know anything. Hey, what are you doing here today? Are you here to help us? Qin Guang saw that she didn't want to say it, so he thought that there was no need to ask her. If you don't want to say it, then forget it. I'll call and ask myself. Isn't that the same? Hua Ling wanted to say something, but Zhong Yu immediately covered her mouth and stuffed an experiment manual into Qin Guang's hands. You look very free today. Aren't you a member of our lab? Why don't you learn and give it a try? Qin Guang was thinking about Zhuo Jingxi. He missed her a little, but he didn't know how to face her. In the end, he still plucked up the courage to call Zhuo Jingxi, but he couldn't get through. Her phone was turned off. After that, Qin Guang returned to the laboratory and started messing around with the two of them. Maybe Zhuo Jingxi was on a plane and Qin Guang planned to call her after a while. If Zhuo Jingxi really came back from the United States, it was reasonable for him to pick her up. Until the afternoon, Qin Guang still couldn't get through to her. However, he had to leave the lab temporarily because a few uninvited guests had come to the factory. Song Ningyuan had personally led a team to meet Qin Guang. Qin Guang didn't want to talk to him, but Song Ningyuan was accompanied by the head of Tongshan's Environmental Protection Department, Deputy Chief Peng, whom he had already met once, and the Deputy Chief of the Municipal Administration. He had to meet them. Chapter 1035. Song Ningyuan was sitting casually in the conference room of the Tangshan factory office building. Although he had arrived in a hurry, there was no sign of anxiety on his face. Instead, he looked exceptionally calm. From time to time he would whisper to Zheng He, who had come with him to join in the fun. From time to time he would nod at the local officials of Tangshan who were sitting opposite him. On the way from Wujing to Tangshan he had made one phone call after another. After receiving a clear answer, his mood had turned from gloomy to sunny, and he was indescribably satisfied. Qin Guang, let's see what you're going to do. Song Ningyuan crossed his legs, picked up the teacup in front of him and took a comfortable sip. Things had taken a turn for the better. Even the tea in the factory tasted sweeter. On the other side, Qin Guang walked into the office surrounded by the middle management of the Tangshan factory. He went straight to the main seat, then looked to the side and saw Song Ningyuan and Zheng He looking at him meaningfully. Qin Guang frowned slightly, rolled his eyes and pointed at Zheng He. This is Mr. Song Ningyuan from Tiansong, right? The smug look on Song Ningyuan and Zheng He's faces disappeared in an instant, and they were both speechless. What the hell is going on? You actually mistook us for each other. Song Ningyuan suppressed his anger, stood up and said, Mr. Qin, you're forgetful. We've met once before. How can you mistake me for someone else? I'm Song Ningyuan and this is Zheng He, a member of the board of directors of New Radiance Group. Our two companies have close cooperation, so today, We're here to see the Tangshan industrial factory that Tiansong Water Company is about to take over. Zheng He said sarcastically. What? Qin Guang, you've even forgotten your old classmate? Forget it, brother, let's not play dumb with him anymore. Qin Guang, my brother and I are cousins. This Tangshan industrial factory doesn't just belong to Tiansong Water Company. New Radiance Group also has a stake in it. Tangshan is also one of the top industrial bases of New Radiance Group in the country. The large feed factory beside the highway exit was New Ray's pig feed industrial base. Whether as a partner of Tiansong or considering the interests of my New Ray Group, I need to represent the company to come down and take a look at the situation of Tangshan industrial factory. Qin Guang pretended to be enlightened. Oh, I remember now. As I look at my memory. Zheng He, I have a deeper impression of your face, so I accidentally forgot it. But we're not old classmates, we're not in the same class, we're not in the same profession, and we don't have any friendship. Right? Then he suddenly changed the topic. He was still smiling a moment ago, but his face suddenly became serious. He looked at Song Ningyuan coldly. As for Song Ningyuan, Mr. Song, I don't know why you're here today, but I can tell you clearly that you're not welcome here. I don't care what will happen to Tangshan Industrial in the future, but at least for now, I'm still in charge here. It has nothing to do with you. And you, Zheng He, you have even less to do with me. Qin Guang thought to himself as he put on airs. Sure enough, people depended on fate. He, Song Ningyuan, and Zheng He were from the two big families, so their fates were definitely incompatible. First he offended Zheng He because of Wenwen, and then he offended Song Ningyuan because of Tang Ying. Now for the sake of Tangshan Industrial Factory he'd brought these two groups together. Well, now that I'm in a different position, I'm no longer the ignorant person I used to be. Even if your Tiansong Water Group and New Ray Group come together, what can you do to me? I won't give you face today. What can you do? Not satisfied? Come and hit me. Song Ningyuan and Zheng He's expressions changed. They didn't expect Qin Guang's reaction to be so extreme. In the past, when you were barefooted, you were not afraid of wearing shoes. You liked to be unreasonable. Fine, we thought that you didn't understand the situation. But now you are a big shot. Show some of your magnanimity. Tangshan City's local government's second-in-command saw that the situation wasn't looking good and quickly tried to smooth things over. Chief Chen, here's the thing. Previously, when Boss Yao was managing Xiaoguang Environmental Protection, it was really difficult for Tangshan Industrial Factory to meet the standards. We saw that Xiaoguang Environmental Protection was hopeless, so we held a national competition for the management unit of Tangshan Industrial Factory in advance. After a comprehensive selection by a team of experts, Tiansong Water Group won the bid. We've already reported the results to the provincial department, and the ministry has also approved it. In addition, New Ray Group is indeed a big taxpayer in Tangshan City. It's a great help to our local development. We also have the responsibility and obligation to provide a good and stable production and operating environment for New Ray Group. So, Qin Guang responded with an O. As soon as this guy spoke, Qin Guang understood. No wonder Song Ningyuan wanted to come and this second-in-command followed him. He was clearly on Song Ningyuan and Zheng He's side. Thinking of this, Qin Guang quietly turned his gaze to Deputy Chief Peng, who had been hiding in the corner pretending to be offline. This chubby guy gave Qin Guang a fleeting look, but he didn't dare to look directly at him. Sure enough, he also understood. Where there were people, there would be underworld. At least in Tangshan City, Tiansong Water Group was very well managed. There were many of his own people, so it was no wonder that Song Ningyuan still refused to give up. But so what? Qin Guang said, I'm a dragon crossing the river and I'm a local snake. Besides, it's a competition of connections. Who doesn't have connections? I'm also a native of Dechuan province, so it's not like I can't find people, okay? On the other side, Song Ningyuan saw that his people were in control of the situation, so he got up and said with a smile, Qin Guang, I'll be frank. Today, I'm here for the operation rights of Tangshan Industrial Plant. Our previous bidding was in line with the 3 principles of fairness, and public supervision from all walks of life. Our Tiansong Water Group's technical and economic strength is the only one in the country that can perfectly solve the Tangshan Industrial Plant's long-standing problem. Although I don't know what means you used to pass the inspection the day before yesterday, Xiaoguang Environmental Protection's operating period will still expire in 4 months. Now Shaoguang Environmental Protection and my Tiansong Water Group have two choices in front of us. Either we wait for Shaoguang Environmental Protection's last 4 months of operating rights to smoothly hand over, or I'll make the decision and represent Tiansong Water Group to provide appropriate compensation to your company, and we'll complete the handover procedures ahead of time. Qin Guang, we did have some personal grudges before, but I think we should put aside such meaningless personal feelings in the business world. I came with sincerity, and my compensation proposal can also reduce your losses. I don't need to pay tens of millions for nothing, but I'm also responsible for Tongshan City, and I hope to solve the Tongshan industrial plant's cancerous problem as soon as possible. Qin Guang pretended to have just understood. I see. Then don't I have to thank you? Song Ningyun grinned. I don't dare to thank you. It's just business after all. But without my compensation proposal, you'd still have nothing after 4 months. The second in command of Tongshan also tried to persuade him. Chief Qin, Mr. Song is right. We also know that there's something fishy about you taking over Shaoguang Environmental Protection, so we came up with this proposal after a last-minute discussion. It's also for your consideration, Chief Qin. Qin Guang looked at Song Ningyuan with a burning gaze, then looked at Xie Yu, who was standing behind him. Previously, this manager Xie behind you offered me 50 million, but I rejected it. Song Ningyun saw that he had relented and thought that he had been moved. He was secretly delighted. After all, it's only 4 months. Although 50 million is not considered low, I can personally make the decision. We can discuss this further. I guarantee that my company's evaluation department will do their best to find a figure that will satisfy you, okay? Qin Guang grinned at him and held up 2 fingers. Song Ningyuan thought he was going to add 20 million. 70 million? Qin Guang shook his head. Song Ningyuan sucked in a cold breath. Don't tell me you want 200 million? Qin Guang continued to shake his head. What do you mean? 2 billion? Don't joke around. Qin Guang grinned. I mean, you're very stupid. If I wanted to sell, I would have discussed the transfer fee with you when that manager Xie of yours came. Do you need to go through all this trouble now? Song Ningyuan's face turned green and white, cursing in his heart. He felt like a scholar meeting a soldier, unable to reason with him. He hated this kind of idiot the most when doing business. Are you crazy? Can't you talk it out properly? Xing, he slammed the table. Qin Guang. What right do you have to scold me? Qin Guang turned to look at him. The table in front of you is made of gold-threaded nanmu. I bought it for more than 7 million and now it's cracked. Do as you see fit. Xing, he said anxiously, which eye of yours saw it crack? Qin Guang was expressionless. You're the young master of new light. Don't you understand this? The value of a real luxury item will plummet even if it's just a crack. Just wait for my lawyer's letter. Song Ningyun interrupted him. We're here to talk to you about Tongshan Industrial Plant today, not about the table. Qin Guang looked back at Song Ningyuan with a puzzled expression. Strange. Was what I said just now not clear enough? Or did you not understand? Or are you really stupid? Song Ningyun suppressed his anger. Qin Guang, business is business. Why are you looking for trouble? To tell you the truth, I'm determined to get Tongshan Industrial Plant. Really? Then I won't give up an inch. Song Ningyuan's mouth twitched. I know what you're thinking. You think you can renegotiate the operating period by getting Lu Chemical to invest in the reconstruction? Stop dreaming. The deduction of Shaoguang Environmental Protection's term was done in accordance with the law and regulations. Shaoguang Environmental Protection has been completely eliminated. Even if you get Lu Chemical, it's useless. Do you think the bidding is a joke? You want to renegotiate? The second in command of Tongshan also coughed lightly and said, Mr. Qin, Mr. Song is right. Even if it's rebuilt, Shaoguang Environmental Protection doesn't have the right to operate it. Unless you form a new company and change the main operator. But in this case, we have already completed the bidding for BOT operation. Tiansong Water Group won the bid. This is a sure thing. Qin Guang watched the two of them sing and cooperate with each other. They even blocked his way out. Sure enough, they came prepared. In fact, he also had a headache. Although Song Ningyuan and the local officials' words were unpleasant to hear, they did stand on the right side. Now that the public opinion had exploded, although he had turned things around twice and barely stabilized the situation, Tongshan Industrial Plant was still inevitably in the eyes of the people of the country. He couldn't risk the world's condemnation to engage in under-the-table operations. No matter how hateful Song Ningyuan and Tiansong Water Group were, there was no denying that they did have a way in the water treatment industry. They were worthy of being the strongest leader in the country and had a great influence in the industry. Qin Guang, I'll say something you don't want to hear. Even if you really rebuild Tangshan plant with the Lu Corporation, do you really think it's so easy to maintain a profit while operating up to the standard? I think you should be very clear about how difficult it is to treat the water in Tangshan plant in the past few days. It's not that I, Song Ningyuan, want to brag, but looking at the whole country, I really don't think any company has the confidence to say that they can definitely operate stably and meet the standard. As for adding medicine, we don't need to beat around the bush. We have to add medicine every few days. The cost of adding medicine is millions and the cost of discharging mud is millions. This is a bottomless pit that can't be filled. Qin Guang, you have to think twice. Song Ningyuan continued to pursue the victory. On the other side, the second-in-command of Tangshan also stood up and spoke. Mr. Qin, we all know about what happened a few days ago. Before I came here, I also talked to a few nearby solid waste treatment stations and landfills. Just like the chemical sludge you used before, their capacity is completely saturated. It really isn't a long-term solution in the future. Qin Guang, I'll be so bold as to make a decision again. 80 million. I can't go any higher. Transfer it now and the transfer fee is 80 million. How about it? Just treat it as me paying for you for free. Although Song Ningyuan was annoying, he was also a talent. He was well-versed in the art of negotiation. He felt that he had finally pulled Qin Guang into the mindset of a normal person. He finally had the upper hand in the negotiation, and he increased the price appropriately to further hammer Qin Guang's bottom line. Zheng He had been watching the show from the side from the beginning to the end. He also interrupted at the right time. Qin Guang, a wise man submits to circumstances. Giving others convenience is also giving yourself convenience. Take a step back and the world will be wide open. Let's not talk about anything else. You've seen the Tangshan River below. As a person, you can't go against your conscience. You have to be responsible for ordinary people. Actually, Zheng He didn't understand the sense of responsibility of a commoner. He just knew in his heart that Qin Guangzhou would be at a disadvantage and so would Qin Guangzhou. In any case, seeing Qin Guangzhou at a disadvantage made him feel good. Aren't your fists hard? Aren't your connections strong? But you claim to be a good person. As long as you claim to be a good person, you won't be able to get over the hurdle in your heart. Sooner or later you'll have to admit defeat. I came here today to follow my cousin and watch you admit defeat in front of everyone, to wash away your shame. Song Ningyuan coughed lightly, indicating for Zheng He to restrain himself. Qin Guang turned to look at him, his heart burning with anger. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? Coming here to act cool? All of you are echoing each other. White faces, black faces, flowery faces, red faces, all of you are here. Are you acting in a play or singing a Beijing opera? If a tiger doesn't show its might, do you guys really think I'm a big white cat? In addition, even the teachers in your school, a few of the top experts have signed consulting contracts with Tiansong. Qin Guang turned his face in the direction of the conference room and finally came to a realization. That damned Song Ning had come prepared. Then I will import the technology from abroad. Lu Fei rejected him again. My chief consultant also told me that when it comes to water treatment, other countries are not as advanced as our country. Our national conditions are different from others. In the end, the treatment of environmental pollution still depends on the local conditions. Foreign monks may not be able to read our scriptures. Many of their new technologies may seem advanced, but they may not be applicable. If we rashly import them, it may not be worth it. There are many similar examples all over the country. Qin Guang sighed. So there's really no other way? Lu Fei also sighed. In a sense, that's true. Okay, I'm negotiating with Song Ningyuan right now. I'll think about it. After saying that, Qin Guang hung up the phone and leaned against the wall. His mind was in a daze. If he hadn't been personally involved in these things, he really didn't expect doing business to be such a headache and vexing thing. The difference between running a company in the real sense and simply hyping up a project in the past was really too big. Am I really not suitable for this business? Qin Guang asked himself. But if he wanted him to stop and admit defeat, he remembered how Song Ningyuan and Zheng He pretended to be negotiating, but actually came to show off in front of him. He was furious. Especially now that he understood Song Mingyuan's secret actions. Qin Guang recalled Song Mingyuan's words and felt that he was even more repulsive. Even though he seemed to be giving in to raise the price to 80 million in Qin Guang's mind, it was like showing off and dismissing a beggar. Of course, with Su Lijing Kainan Province's Bao family, and Dechuan Xiang family as living examples of people who fell under Qin Guang's butcher knife, even if Song Mingyuan and Jing He had 100 guts, they still wouldn't have the guts to treat Qin Guang like ordinary people. They endured, restrained themselves, only laughing in their hearts, but on the surface they looked like they were only talking business. However, Qin Guang's acting skills were too good, and his eyesight was too sharp. With a single glance he could tell that Song Mingyuan and Jing He were rejoicing in his misfortune. Sometimes, it wasn't necessarily a good thing to see too deeply into the affairs of the world. Qin Guang truly couldn't allow himself to be muddle-headed. He was not in a hurry to return to the conference room, instead taking a deep breath and calling Guoming over. Old Gui, in the contract Xia Guang signed previously, there was a clear clause that could extend the term, right? Guoming thought for a while before nodding. There is such a clause. For example, when Xia Guang was managing the Tangshan industrial factory, on one hand he operated stably up to the standards, and on the other hand achieved major technological advancements that could at least be awarded a first-rate National Science and Technology Progress Award. Or according to the rules, our emissions only need to reach the third-rate standard. However, if we can reach the first-rate standard, things will be different. If we can achieve both of these conditions, we can first apply to become a national high-tech enterprise. On one hand we can obtain tax relief and on the other we can renegotiate the term. That's very difficult. Qin Guang sighed. Guoming nodded. Of course it's difficult, almost impossible. We can't even reach the third-rate standard. Qin Guang, however, suddenly made a decision. Fine then. I'll use this reason to stall them first. Guoming was slightly surprised. Not selling? Qin Guang nodded heavily. Not selling even if it costs my life. With that, Qin Guang immediately returned to the conference room. Song Mingyun seemed to have already guessed whose call he had just received and what had been said. The confident smile on his face deepened. Unexpectedly, Qin Guang waved his hand. Let's end the meeting here for today. Send the guests off. Song Mingyuan and the rest had blank looks on their faces. What was going on? Qin Guang glared coldly at everyone. Don't you understand what I said? I said send the guests off. The second in command of Tangshan still wanted to say something, but the moment he met Qin Guang's gaze he shrunk back, not daring to say anything more. This person was in a fit of anger and had turned into a powder keg. They could not afford to offend him. Qin Guang. Xing He opened his mouth to speak. But he was immediately interrupted by Qin Guang. Xing, you'd better leave while I can still hold it in. Back then you brought people to ambush me and wanted to break my limbs. Now even if I break your tendons in front of everyone, your family won't be able to do anything to me. Do you believe me? Xing He's face instantly turned pale. When Qin Guang mentioned this matter, the chill in his voice made him feel goosebumps all over his body. In his heart he regretted getting involved in this matter. He wanted to see Qin Guang make a fool out of himself, but he ended up being threatened by Qin Guang in public, so he did not dare to say anything. Xing He really did not dare to say anything harsh. Losing face was a small matter, but breaking his limbs was a big deal. Xing He knew that Qin Guang would do as he said. Seeing that the situation was not good, Song Mingyun quickly forced a smile on his face. It's a misunderstanding. What happened in the past was a misunderstanding. Well, since you're busy today, we'll come again another day. Don't be angry, Mr. Qin. You know that I'm doing this out of good intentions. Get lost. Qin Guang pointed at the door. Song Mingyuan's words were cut off halfway. He quickly cupped his hands again and turned to run. The others followed. When Song Mingyuan and the others were far away, the second in command of Tangshan and the people in charge of the Environmental Protection Bureau were also quite embarrassed. Deputy Chief Pang, who had dealt with Qin Guang before, came out to smooth things over. Mr. Qin, today Qin Guang's expression turned from gloomy to sunny. He patted the fat chief, who was especially courageous. In order to uphold justice for the people of Tangshan, he was not afraid to offend him. Chief Pang, you don't have to say anything. I understand. I don't blame you. You're just doing things according to the rules. Deputy Chief Pang sighed. Sigh. The second in command of Tongshan was indeed a wily old fox. Even so, he did not feel too embarrassed. He sighed. But if that's the case, in 4 months, Mr. Qin? Qin Guang grinned. What's the rush? Isn't there still 4 months? Isn't there a floating clause in the contract that Xia Guang signed with the city? Of course we know that. We've also studied the contract carefully more than once. The floating clause was added in response to the country's policy of encouraging technological advancement. But it's not feasible at all. Qin Guang was impatient. He waved his hand. Whether it's feasible or not, we'll know when the time comes. I haven't given him the death sentence yet. Oh right, I'll have to trouble everyone to help me inform the other enterprises in the industrial park to cooperate as much as possible. From now on, reduce the water intake. Whether it's reconstruction or otherwise, I'll give you an answer next week at the latest. Deputy Chief Peng was slightly shocked. You really want to rebuild? Qin Guang nodded. This is just one of the options. If I want to rebuild, I won't be able to live with my own money. Who can stop me? If Song Mingyuan hadn't played tricks with the top experts in the country and put $200 million in front of me, I would really be interested in talking to him. As for now, since you're being heartless, don't blame me for being unjust. There's no harm in making things clear in front of all of you. If I don't give up Tongshan Industrial Plant, no one can take it away from me. If it really can't meet the standards, then I'll change all the enterprises in this industrial park to labor-intensive OEM factories like Foxconn without sewage discharge. You should know that I have the power to do that. With that, Qin Guang swaggered away, leaving the group of people in the meeting room to exchange glances. As Qin Guang's spokesperson, Guoming could only shrug helplessly as Deputy Chief Pang and the others stared at him anxiously. Our CO Qin is quite hard to please. Zhuo Jingxi's phone still couldn't be reached. Qin Guang wasn't in the mood to go anywhere else, so he ran over to Hua Ling and Zhong Yu's lab and sat down. At this moment, his mind was filled with Guoming's previous major technological innovation that could at least win the National First Class Science and Technology Progress Award. Now that things had come to this, he finally found the key point. If he wanted to get through this once and for all, the only way to legitimately was to get technology. New technology. What an awesome new technology. In today's world, what was the most awesome technology? Perhaps there were many. Computer CPUs, polysilicon photolithography machines, nanomanufacturing processes, artificial intelligence, these were all top new technologies. But in the environmental protection industry there were only a few. Genomic analysis of characteristic bacteria was one of them. Another was the research and development and application of photocatalysts in water pollution treatment, which was definitely the most cutting-edge technology. He didn't have any other good ideas, so he simply sat in the lab and got closer to the so-called cutting-edge technology. At least it could inspire his thinking, right? Qin Guang sat in the lab and drank some water. The tea inside had been soaked for too long and had lost its flavor. He shook off the tea inside, then casually tore open a bag of Hua Ling's Nescafe coffee on his desk, poured it into a cup, picked up the heavenly holy grail, and randomly took a stick from the shelf on the table to stir the cup. My head hurts. I'm so annoyed. Sister Hualing, when are you going to get some reliable results from your experiment? I remember that there are laboratories abroad that can already be used, right? The water that they purify with photocatalysts is almost as good as purified water. I'm at the end of my rope now, so I'm counting on you too. Qin Guang saw that Hua Ling and Zhong Yu were still busy and couldn't help but interrupt them. Hua Ling turned around and rolled her eyes at him. I know about that Japanese laboratory. It's hard to say whether it's true or not, but the cost of their photocatalyst paint is hundreds of thousands of dollars. The catalytic reaction also requires ultra-high intensity ultraviolet radiation. It's probably as far from industrial application as Sun Wukong. Zhong Yu looked at Qin Guang's hand in horror. Qin Guang, what are you doing? You used our photocatalyst carrier to stir the coffee. Qin Guang was shocked. His hand shook and the shiny silver metal stick in his hand fell into the cup, completely buried in the instant coffee. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu covered their heads. Oh my god. A sample worth more than $18,000. It's over. Professor Xu will kill us. Chapter 1037. Qin Guang held the cup in a daze. Looking at the grief-stricken faces of the two, He knew that he had accidentally made a big mistake. He awkwardly feigned ignorance. Don't be afraid. Don't panic. It's 18,000 yuan, right? It's okay. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. Hua Ling rushed in front of him and said anxiously, hurry up and take it out. This isn't a problem of money. The two of us only brought so many samples and they were all prepared by the seniors in the lab with great difficulty. Just the stick in your hand would take at least a week to make. You soaked it in the hot coffee and it's all gone. Qin Guang froze. Since it was someone else's hard work, he had committed a grave sin. Sorry. I didn't mean it. As Qin Guang spoke, he put his hand into the coffee, his face full of awkwardness. Hua Ling wanted to pull his hand back again. She shouted, don't put your hand in, pour it out. Are you crazy? It's boiling water. Qin Guang shook his head nonchalantly. Small problem. Not to mention boiling water, I can even put my hand in a pan of oil. My iron palm. Zhong Yu hugged her head with both hands, wishing she could strangle him. Who said it was a small problem? This is the end of the world. Hua Ling bared her fangs and brandished her claws. She pressed her hands on Qin Guang's head and pulled his hair. I understand the logic, but I just want to strangle you. The chubby northeastern lady was so tough. She would not make a fuss if she could make a move. 2 days ago she had received a 100,000 yuan bonus from this guy, so he could be considered her boss. However, Hua Ling was straightforward and insensitive. She did not realize that the boss could not be beaten but should be curried favor. As for Zhong Yu, she was Qin Guang's hometown in Lilai County, and they even attended the same high school. Thus, she couldn't bring out the slightest bit of respect for Boss Qin. So when she saw Hua Ling fiddling with Qin Guang's hair, she couldn't help following suit. Poor Master Guang, the world's #1 martial artist, had just publicly clamored in the conference room that he would cut off the tendons of others' hands and feet. He had talked a lot of nonsense and said that the old man's face fruit was extremely powerful. He could be said to be the most domineering and unparalleled in the world. No one dared to provoke him. However, in less than 10 minutes he had been beaten up by 2 female master students in the laboratory. His dignity and image had been shattered. Qin Guang thought to himself, fortunately there are no outsiders here. If I had known earlier I would have been better off bald. I don't even have hair for you to pull. Alright, stop fooling around. I'm taking something. Do you still want it? Zhong Yu said, this is a heat-sensitive photocatalyst. It's gone after soaking in boiling water, okay? Oh, I see. Then I'll continue to stir the coffee. Hua Ling said, **T. If he's alive, I want to see the rod. If he's dead, I want to see the corpse. Hurry up and leave. Then don't disturb me. The metal rod was a little short and the coffee wasn't transparent. Hence, Qin Guang was struggling to resist the 2 ladies ravaging his hair. At the same time, he stretched out his index and middle finger to feel around in the boiling coffee. However, the cup was a little deep. He grabbed it twice with his fingertips and shook it off. Qin Guang's heart ached. He simply clenched his 5 fingers and used one of the 400,000 techniques he learned in the realm of true martial, the Phoenix Claw Bone Shrinking Technique. His entire hand reached into the cup. Come out, you little whore. As he was thinking in his heart, suddenly his head went black and he subconsciously felt dizzy. It happened again, this familiar feeling. Unlike the previous times when he actively entered the world in the cup, this was the sudden and unreasonable trigger mechanism of the world in the cup that he hadn't entered for a long time. At this time, Qin Guang only felt an inexplicable and terrible suction coming from his right hand that reached into the cup. His body became light in an instant and his whole body was rapidly compressed. In the next second he appeared over Cloud City and fell straight down with a dumbfounded look. Strange, I remember Liali said that after entering One Line Sky, shouldn't there be a day's notice before the task of the world in the cup suddenly appeared? Why did it come so suddenly this time without warning and unreasonably? This feeling was exactly the same as when he encountered the world of Sword Tower, the Racing God training ground and even sharpening pencils. Could it be that the heavenly Holy Grail had degenerated? It was upgraded in reverse again. This time it was not One Line Sky but back to Jianling Tian? Wasn't this too much of a scam? Qin Guang was still free-falling down but his mind was blank. Then with a splash he fell into the water. The water was warm and smelled a little milky. When he poured a little into his mouth it was slightly sweet. How wasn't I in Cloud City? Why did I fall directly into the water? Could it be that I skipped Cloud City this time and directly entered the world in the cup? No, that's not right. It should be coffee, not milk. This smell doesn't feel right. Oh no, could it be that the milk-flavored wastewater that the Holy Grail fell into the aerobic pool last time and entered the Holy Grail through time and space? Impossible, there was no milk-flavored wastewater, right? So he thought in a daze as he sat up. Unexpectedly, as soon as he poked his head out, he was punched in the head. This punch was extremely heavy and had a very familiar taste. The Lioli-style punch that he had practiced thousands of times on his body had hit him so hard that he saw stars. Before he could scold Lioli for taking the wrong medicine, he heard a sharp roar in his ears. It was Lioli herself. How did you come in? Qin Guang shook his head and then glared. You asked me. I also want to know. Aren't you the clearest? Be reasonable, please. You hit me every time. Even a clay bodhisattva has some temper. The moment he opened his eyes, he immediately understood why Lioli had such a big reaction and what the milk-flavored water was. It turned out that when he entered the world in the cup, Lioli was actually taking a milk bath. At this moment, he was in the same big bathtub with Lioli, who was naked without the cover of clouds and mist, and without the cover of a bikini feather dress. It seemed that the world in the cup came so suddenly that Lioli was completely unprepared and caught him unprepared. He looked over, and all he saw was a snow-white body that was crystalline, translucent, gorgeous, and perfect to the point it completely exceeded his imagination. The magnificent scene in front of him at this moment could be described like this. He still remembered that year the mountain was covered by heavy snow and the mountain range was layered. That mountain was round and tall. Everyone looked over and saw silver scales everywhere. At the top of the mountain, wintersweet was in full bloom, embellished with cherry red, adding some spring greenery in this cool winter. And these two wintersweet, Qin Guang silently wiped his nose. He didn't know whether it was the blood caused by Lioli's hammer or his own nosebleed. Forget it, I can't say anymore or I'll die. Although it wasn't the first time he had tried to take advantage of Lioli's eyes, it was the first time he was able to size her up at such a close distance and see her so clearly. Qin Guang thought silently. Although the old man had seen a lot, the goddess was indeed a goddess, a real god. Lioli's figure was different from a human's. No matter how perfect a human's figure was, there was a limit. But a god's was not like this. Qin Guang focused his eyes, trying to find even the slightest flaw from every angle. No, there was no flaw at all. Every angle was the perfect ratio of the golden ratio. No, even every inch of her skin, the distribution of every pore, was the golden ratio that could withstand the test of time. Even every inch of the pink plum blossom's petals strictly adhered to the perfect proportion. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that there was such a creation in the world. Was it because she was inexplicably punched just now? What was that? He had no impression at all. In the short life of a human, if he had the chance to see such a perfect creation, it was worth it even if his life was shortened by 50 years. Life should be like the summer flowers, only seeking one night of brilliance. At this moment, this moment will be the highest point of my life. Bang! It was another kick to Qin Guang's chest that sent the stunned Qin Guang flying, who knew how far away. Chapter 1038. He floated in the air, but he couldn't feel the pain in his chest at all. His mind was still thinking about that beautiful glimpse just now. With a plop, it fell to the ground like a rag. Qin Guang looked at the sky above Cloud City with a blank expression, a silly smile on his face. With a splash, Lioli flew out of the bathtub. While she was still flying in the air, the bikini feather dress appeared out of nowhere. Eat my battle axe style god-slaying kick. As Lioli flew in the direction of Qin Guang, her slender right leg emitted divine light. She, who was so ashamed that she wanted to go crazy, actually used her divine power. The terrifying deity-slaying kick descended from the sky, and a boundlessly huge golden axe that was covered in mysterious divine runes appeared in the void above Cloud City. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled on the blade of the axe, causing the air to tremble violently, and the sound of a huge bell rang out. If Lioli's kick landed, Qin Guang would die. At this critical moment, an overwhelming number of vines flew over from behind. These vines were extremely fast, and each one was like a jade that contained light. In an instant they tightly wrapped around Lioli's body. Sister Lioli, calm down. Think twice. You can't slash Qin Guang to death. Dear Cry's lowly voice came from the fruit outside Cloud City. But it was useless. Lioli, who was already in a killing frenzy, was still struggling, desperately trying to chop off her leg. The vines also surged with divine light. Dear Cry also used his divine power. Finally, Lioli's god-slaying kick stopped about 2 inches away from the tip of Qin Guang's nose. It was pulled back by Dear Cry, who didn't care about his life. Qin Guang was still in a daze. He didn't even know that he had walked past the gates of hell. Looking at the 3-inch little white fragrant lotus in front of him, he stuck out his tongue for some reason. Ah! Crazy. Calm down, Sister Lioli. Look at what he's done. Not only did he look at me, he even licked me. Sister Lioli, this isn't the first time you've been licked by him. Besides, you can't blame him. He's just an ordinary person now. He can't resist your god's power, let alone the temptation of your god's body. It's normal. I'm going to die of anger. Oh no, I'm going to die of anger. Calm down. Calm down. Think about it. This means that your divine body is becoming more and more perfect. It means that you are beautiful. Think about it, as divine emperors, every inch of our skin contains the profound mysteries of divinity that we have painstakingly cultivated. As an ordinary mortal, Qin Guang is addicted to it. That's reasonable. After an unknown period of time, Luli finally calmed down. On the other side, Qin Guang also gradually came back to his senses. Although he was in a daze just now, he still remembered what had happened. Thinking about it carefully, he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. In view of this, even if he was indignant and felt that Luli had gone too far, Qin Guang still decisively decided to be a coward. He followed Lu Ming's words and added, "That's right, the most beautiful Lord Luli in the God realm is compassionate and compassionate. I really didn't do it on purpose. I'm also puzzled. The Heaven Line Cup hasn't appeared for almost 2 months. I wasn't mentally prepared at all and was suddenly pulled in. What's going on?" Luli was still angry. Who knows what's going on? Don't ask me. Qin Guang turned his gaze to Lu Ming, who was peeking out from the edge of the city wall. "Lord Lu Ming, do you know?" Lu Ming shook his fruit. "Ask the most beautiful Lord Luli in the God realm." Qin Guang, Emperor of the Azure and Deity Emperor Lu Ming are tied for the most beautiful in the God realm. Lu Ming was immediately satisfied. "At least you know what's good for you." Luli finally calmed down. "All right, don't ask me and Lu Ming. We really don't know. Ever since the real world and your real world inexplicably began to merge and get closer, and the power of the Holy Grail began to leak out, many things have exceeded your my initial expectations. The changes that are happening now are also beyond the understanding of the God Emperor realm. When the 1-month deadline arrived, the Heaven Line Cup didn't appear on time. I could only roughly guess that it was because the power of the Holy Grail leaked out, and the energy reserve of the Heavenly Holy Grail was insufficient." Qin Guang asked cautiously, "Could it be that this time the Heaven Line Cup dropped to the sky of seeing the spirit again?" "That won't happen." Qin Guang was relieved. "That's good, it's good that it didn't drop. After all, it's not the first time the Holy Grail has been upgraded in reverse." Lu Ming snickered. "That's because when I greeted you for the first time, I wanted to save face and had to use high-level goods to scare you." "Shut up." Qin Guang still wanted to ask something, but it was too late. His head pointed again, and with a swish he was sucked into the space-time tunnel that appeared out of thin air above his head. Floating in the space-time tunnel, he was repeatedly thinking about what happened before. Before coming in, what was it that I wanted the most in my mind? Taking the stick out of the cup? Damn the one-line Heavenly Realm stick-pulling technique. Thinking about this skill, it's so erotic that I can't look straight at it. Wasting a precious one-line Heavenly Holy Grail realm like this. I'm so stifled that I'm about to have myocarditis. Alright, could it be because I have a lot of power of the Holy Grail in my body, and after I put my hand into the cup, I just happened to meet the conditions to trigger the Heavenly Holy Grail? Just as he was thinking, he fell into the scalding water with a splash. He hurriedly spread his internal energy all over his body to resist the heat from the outside world. What he smelled was indeed the strong smell of Nescafé instant coffee. He poked his head out of the coffee and looked around. This seemed to be a boundless sea of coffee. However, 2,000 meters away, there was a faint gray fog, making the places further away look slightly blurry and illusory. It was a little like playing a large-scale open-world single-player game, where the depth of field in the distance could only be loaded with the most basic textures. Qin Guang looked up again. 5 huge stone pillars that were as tall as the clouds descended from the sky, piercing straight into the sea of coffee. If he didn't know that these were his 5 fingers, he really had the urge to run over and carve the words, Qin Wukong was here on them. Although he didn't know what kind of world in a cup this was, he still felt a little melancholic. If he had known earlier, he would have gotten some freshly ground top-grade Blue Mountain coffee beans. He might have to deal with the sea of coffee in front of him for a long time. The taste of instant coffee was very easy to get tired of, and it was a little unworthy of his current status. Qin Guang held onto the stone pillar. Unable to wait for the heavenly Holy Grail's electronic notification, he could only shout at the top of his lungs, Lord Azure, what kind of world in a cup is this? I'm already here, give me a hint. When he asked this, he was very unconfident. He was especially afraid that it was really the strongest rod drawing technique in history. Wouldn't that overlap with the pile driver's skill? It was already bad enough that he became the strongest pile driver. If he learned the rod drawing technique, it would be even more powerful than the drawing technique. Wouldn't he fall as soon as he took it out? What could he do in the future? I'll hold my knife and laugh at the sky. Flowers can only be plucked? Azure's voice rang out in the void. Congratulations. Qin Guang's face was ashen. It's over. It's the world of photocatalysis that you wanted. No, to be precise, you've hit the jackpot this time. You've got a chance to increase your money. Qin Guang clenched his fist. Yes. As long as it wasn't the rod drawing technique. Then he asked again, what do you mean? Increase my money? It's like when you buy a car. The beggar version has a manual transmission. Add money for the sunroof, then add money for the automatic transmission. What you've got this time is a one-line Sky Realm laboratory world in a cup. Of course, because what you wanted the most before today was to solve your broken factory's photocatalysis problem. This time, this world in a cup can only be the research and development of photocatalysis as the first business. Qin Guang figured out a few key points from Azure's words. Add money. Laboratory world in a cup. For now. Research and development. It seemed that there was a big story behind this. This world in a cup had changed. Although he didn't know what the meaning behind it was, Qin Guang subconsciously felt that he must be a glorious member of the Add Money party. After all, there was a saying that went, put $3,000 into your card and take home the 4-way Titan. But Azure clicked her tongue. You're really lucky. It seems that this world in a cup has been accumulated for too long. Although the total energy supply of the Holy Grail has not changed, the Holy Grail has further optimized the energy distribution method through its own calculation. Although this world in a cup is still in the one-line Sky Realm, it already has some higher-level characteristics. Chapter 1039. Ever since he came to Tongshan Industrial Factory, Qin Guang hasn't encountered anything good, and he's been plagued with bad luck. He was exhausted to the point that he had to give it his all before he managed to turn misfortune into fortune. Now he finally heard some rare good news. Qin Guang, half of his body in the coffee soup, clenched his fist. Don't say any more, I'll add more money, okay? How much? 200 million? Azure spat at him. You're dreaming, I want faith points. Faith points. Qin Guang shrugged. Well, I know I want faith points, I just want to save as much as I can, right? Bah. Listen, you only have 5 minutes to think about it. To be specific, due to some inexplicable special reasons, you were lucky enough to obtain a special laboratory-type world in a cup this time. If you can successfully complete the task, you will be able to obtain several photocatalyst synthesis formulas that can solve your current situation and solve your urgent problems. Qin Guang nodded. I understand, it's the kind of super powerful photocatalyst that after you put it in the water it's done with a Bayou sound, right? There's no need for a large amount of ultraviolet and infrared radiation, right? Of course. The product of the heavenly Holy Grail must be flawless. At most, it only needs sunlight to achieve the effect. Okay, I understand. Then if you choose to invest faith points now after completing the task, this world in a cup will continue to be open to you and you can enter at any time. Hearing those words, Qin Guang came to a realization. That means that I have a laboratory in the Holy Grail? Azure. Yes, but every time you enter you have to consume faith points because it is not like the Sea of Time in the realm of True Martial. The world structure is very incomplete and cannot exist on its own. When you are not inside, the heavenly Holy Grail will freeze it just like a computer on standby. This will also consume faith points, but it will be maintained at a relatively low level. But once you enter, the cup world in the laboratory will begin to operate, and the Holy Grail will need to continuously consume energy to maintain the integrity of its structure. Whether it's maintaining the dimensional barrier to resist the invasion of the spacetime turbulence, or constructing the laws and maintaining the stability of the matter within, or even maintaining the physical body that your soul has reconstructed, all of these require energy. Chen Guang, who was listening attentively, continued to nod. I understand. It's just like how a computer consumes more electricity after it's turned on. Liu Li humphed. It's good that you understand. Apart from that, the amount of faith you consume when you enter the laboratory and when you command the laboratory staff to conduct research is different. Qin Guang nodded again. I understand. It's just like when I turn on my computer and only read web pages, the power consumption is different from when I use my computer to play games. The sound of Liu Li snapping her fingers came from the void. Bingo, you're worth teaching. By the way, I have another question. You said that photocatalysis is the primary business for the time being. Can you let this laboratory continue to help me develop other things in the future? Which ones are they? Also, what about the specific power consumption? Liu Li gave him a very straightforward answer. I don't know. I don't know what it can be developed specifically. I don't know anything about power consumption either. Qin Guang glared. But you were acting like everything was under your control just now. What I said just now is what I know. Of course, I have everything under control. Is there a problem? Why? Are you giving up? I can only give you a general guess. Just like the laboratory in your school, it can only do this thing and develop this thing. If you want the laboratory to be able to develop something else, do you have to buy new equipment? Do you have to hire more researchers? Or do you have to let your researchers study abroad? Do you have to spend money to buy materials for research? Isn't that an expense? Qin Guang was speechless. That's right. I understand. Then it's settled. Anyway, whatever you want to develop in the future, spend money to buy it. Expand your laboratory, expand your functions. In any case, you just have to keep paying faith. Aren't you going to use it now? You have to understand that this is a rare gift from the Holy Grail. In my opinion, your laboratory has great potential. In the future, it can even be used to create new life, explore the true meaning of the lowest level of divine power, and analyze and deduce the essence of the divine spark. Photocatalyst is just a drop in the ocean in front of the sea of stars. Hearing such a high-end function, Qin Guang was drooling. I'd stop talking. I don't care how much faith this thing will burn in the future. In any case, I'll buy it. Just give me a number. How much faith should I invest now? Qin Guang decided to make the final decision. He thought to himself, I have more than 20 million faith points now. So what if I'm generous? I'm a millionaire with more than 400,000 faith points every day. I've worked so hard to create so many statues in the past. I can finally put them to good use. More importantly, this is a one-time investment with long-term benefits. The upper limit is higher. It's more reliable than simply spending faith points to exchange for the one-line heavenly grail. Ding dong. Just as Qin Guang was thinking about this, an electronic voice in the style of the Holy Grail sounded in his head. Congratulations to Redeemer Qin Guang for successfully customizing Nicosia's laboratory. Current debt amount: 1,466,652,837. Please pay it off within 2 years. Otherwise you will be obliterated. What a scam. The same roar came from Qin Guang and Azure's mouths. I must have seen a ghost. What the hell is 1 billion? Pay it off in 2 years? I've calculated with my fingers. Right now I can produce 400,000 a day. It'll take at least 10 years, okay? Not to mention the expenses in the future. I'm done for. In addition, what saddened Qin Guang the most was not the despairing number, but the fact that Azure was also complaining about being scammed. Lord Azure, what do you mean by this? You've been trying all sorts of ways to entice me to invest, but you don't even know how much the down payment is. You're definitely the best scammer investment consultant in history, okay? Qin Guang, I didn't expect that either. After you said buy, I thought that since I was going to buy it anyway, it wouldn't be too exaggerated, so I casually clicked confirm for you. I really didn't expect that. Even someone as thick-skinned as Azure knew that she had gone overboard this time. It was very awkward. Qin Guang silently looked up at the sky, calculating his current divine statue and faith production capacity. There was no need to think about the future. Based on the current situation, if he wanted to survive, he would have to increase his faith production capacity by at least 5 times. There was no hope at all. This was not a drill, not a drill. He was really going to be obliterated. Azure, I've often reflected on myself in the past. I always felt that as the son of destiny, the old man was a little too disrespectful to you as a cheat. I also knew that this wasn't good. But now I finally understand that the problem really isn't all on me. I want to respect you more, but I can't do it. How could you be so scammer? Can you imagine how I'm feeling now? It's like going bankrupt and buying the growth enterprise market. Then it will drop to the limit and be suspended at any moment. Then I'll be trapped at any moment, okay? Anyway, I have something to do at home, so I'll take my leave first. Lioli awkwardly left a message before falling completely silent. Qin Guang knew that she would be like this. It was really hard to scold her. Forget it, anyway, it wasn't the first time he had been scammed by her. He'd just deal with it when it came. He couldn't possibly die from holding in his piss, right? He placed his left hand on a stone pillar, scooped up a cup of coffee with his right hand, and poured some into his mouth. The instant Nescafe coffee suddenly became especially bitter. Suddenly, the place where his left hand was propping up was empty, and his entire body tilted to the side. The next moment he fell into a stone door that appeared out of nowhere. Qin Guang looked up and saw a huge brightly lit stone room further inside. There was a sign hanging on the door. Laboratory Cup World Middle Finger Project Team. There was a familiar figure standing under the sign. It was the sexy and hot female teacher Nicosia Tepester, who he used to forcefully study the world of environmental impact assessment and environmental politics. She was holding a small banner in her hand. A warm welcome to the laboratory's investor, Qin Guang, for an inspection. At the same time, the electronic voice of the heavenly Holy Grail in Qin Guang's mind sounded again. The Redeemer has entered the laboratory. The mission is about to begin. The blonde, blue-eyed, and wavy Nicosia swayed her butt and walked forward with a smile. Yo, hello. Qin Guang stood up and blinked. Teacher Nicosia? The big-breasted blonde girl nodded. That's me. This time Qin Guang could not help but be shocked. Not only was this Nicosia really alive, but she could also retain her previous memories. Nicosia herself was also very surprised. She was originally floating alone in an unknown space, quite pitiful and depressed. If it were not for the fact that she was a Frankenstein who could deduce all kinds of strange things in her mind as long as she could think, and the immortality that Lioli threw to her as bait and goal, she would have collapsed long ago. In short, her desire to regain her body was still very strong. Last time when Qin Guang was studying environmental impact assessment and environmental politics, she temporarily regained her physical body. Although her actions and words were completely controlled, she was still moved to tears. Later, Qin Guang opened the Cup World again to learn martial arts. Unfortunately, the scale of the so-called realm of true martial was too large. Nicosia's soul, as a substitute for Lioli, was completely shattered. She unconsciously turned into more than 400,000 martial arts books, which were then learned by Qin Guang. When she came back to her senses, she was floating in the void again as a wandering ghost. Then everything returned to silence. She thought that she would have to wait for many years to regain her physical body again. But now she suddenly regained her physical body again without any feeling of being bound. She could move freely, speak, think clearly, and retain her memories. How could she not be happy? Qin Guang tentatively walked in front of her and pinched her face. Chapter 1040. Nicole slapped Qin Guang's hand away. What are you doing? Qin Guang smirked. I want to see if you're a living person. Nicole's big blue eyes rolled back. Show some respect to your lab director. Of course. Qin Guang looked at this girl up and down. Although he had not interacted much with her, Qin Guang already knew how amazing she was when she blew herself up. Although she was not very stable, she was able to pull out an electromagnetic railgun in this era. She was also related to the Frankenstein Tesla. She was definitely not an ordinary person. The first stage of the mission begins. Basic knowledge of photocatalysis. If you fail, you will die. Qin Guang was planning to get closer to his special employee and chat about her experiences as a descendant of a self-destructing family when the electronic voice of the Heavenly Grail rang out at an untimely time. Nicole apparently received the notification as well. She pulled Qin Guang and walked inside. The two of them passed through the door of the stone room and saw an environment that Qin Guang was very familiar with. A high school classroom. Nicole pressed Qin Guang down on the chair and turned back to the podium. She picked up the teaching stick and knocked on the blackboard. Student Qin Guang, please put away your perverted gaze. Don't look at the teacher's career line. Open the textbook in front of you. We will start from the first chapter of Modern Basic Materials Science. Qin Guang was very unhappy. He felt that something was wrong. For the sake of this laboratory, he had incurred a debt that he could not pay back. Shouldn't he just wave his hand and shout, "We will research and develop whatever we want," and Nicole will immediately go back to work and push the research and development progress bit by bit? It was just like when he used to click on the technology tree when he played StarCraft. Once he clicked on it, all he had to do was wait for the results to arrive. But he did not have time to complain. While he was complaining, the ceiling fan above his head suddenly fell and slammed down heavily, cutting his head. Punishment mechanism for absent-mindedness in class triggered. 1 accidental death. Remaining death count, 8. When he came back to his senses, he was standing at the entrance of the laboratory again. Nicole was looking at him with a pained expression. Can you be serious? Don't joke around. People will die. Old Master Guang didn't even want to complain anymore. What the hell was this laboratory? To think that it could even suppress his inner strength and the power of a soy explosive. Also, he was only distracted for a moment. There was no need to kill him on the spot, right? Also, wouldn't it be a little too crazy to only have a total of 9 resurrections? Unfortunately, the Heavenly Holy Grail would never reason with him. While he was complaining, Nicole hit him hard on the shoulder with her pointer. You're still daydreaming. Qin Guang sighed. Fine, I admit defeat. After who knows how many years, Qin Guang finally managed to learn basic materials science, physical chemistry, modern physics, and all the other subjects related to photocatalysts and successfully completed the first stage. He had died once and he had died for nothing. The second phase of the mission begins. Become a qualified researcher and master the operation of all the instruments. After many years, he finally mastered the operation of all the high-end experimental instruments simulated by the Heavenly Holy Grail. This time he didn't fail. The third phase of the mission begins. Quietly wait for Nicole to complete the research and development of the 5 types of photocatalysis. If the research and development fails, you will die. Qin Guang finally broke down. Damn it. If the third phase is for me to wait, then what's the point of the first 2 phases? Besides, she's the one who failed the research and development. Why should I die? He had a feeling that the Heavenly Holy Grail was deliberately causing trouble. Bored to death, Qin Guang crossed his legs and sat in the laboratory like a stone Buddha. Soon he realized how powerful his laboratory director was. Because in this huge laboratory, Nicole was the only one who had no subordinates. She was the director, but there was no one who was willing to be her subordinate. She moved left and right, constantly manipulating the instruments or throwing in the materials herself. In between, she wrote and calculated. She used the tireless body provided by the realm in the cup to its limit. In her dictionary, there seemed to be no rest, only work. She kept trying, burning batch after batch of materials that appeared out of thin air in exchange for faith points. She looked as if she was always in a state of extreme excitement. It was a stark contrast to Qin Guang, who was bored to death in the laboratory. He could have helped, but every time he approached the instruments he would be blocked by Nicole. Qin Guang roughly understood. Perhaps according to the settings of the Heavenly Holy Grail, he should have become Nicole's assistant, or even an experimental partner, to complete the final step together. However, the Holy Grail saw through his nature and knew that he had no chance of interfering. That was why it changed the name of the third phase of the mission at the last minute. Forget it. Although it's boring, I have a mental blockade. I won't collapse. Qin Guang slumped on the chair in a standard Beijing style. His eyes were lifeless as he pondered the profound philosophy of life. Who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? Why was I born into this world? What is the meaning of my existence? Why did I become the master of the Heavenly Holy Grail? Where is my final destination? Will I be able to survive until I complete the 3,000 worlds and rescue Lioli? What kind of existence will I be after I complete it? Those philosophical, metaphysical, basic subjects and physics problems that you were thinking about just now, we can research them all as long as you're willing to invest faith points. Qin Guang hurriedly jumped and rushed straight into the space-time tunnel. Like how I'll believe you. I still owe more than 1 billion faith points. There won't be a next year if I live past this year and you still want me to invest faith points? Do you want me to die? When Qin Guang's figure completely disappeared, Nicole stomped her feet unwillingly. She turned back to look at the Middle Finger Project team's laboratory and muttered to herself, "Sigh, what a pity. This short-sighted stingy boss only used the middle finger when he had 5 fingers. Do you know what I just discovered?" As Nicole spoke, endless frost came from afar and quickly completely froze her and the laboratory behind her. Before the consciousness in her mind completely fell silent, Nicole was still muttering in her heart. Through studying the structural changes of photocatalysts, I even discovered the mystery of forging a world. As long as you give me enough time and investment, I can see through the mystery of plane creation. I can also find the truth of divine power. In addition, Qin Guang used faith points to directly exchange for knowledge, which felt really good. In fact, before this, Nicole didn't know much about photocatalysts, but the setting of the heavenly Holy Grail was like this. As Qin Guang's mentor in the world in the cup, she was set to be the top master of photocatalysts in history from the very beginning. It didn't matter if she didn't understand it at first. The heavenly Holy Grail wanted you to understand it. Even if you didn't understand it, you would understand it. When she was still alive, Nicole often lamented how short human life was, while the sea of knowledge was endless. Now that she experienced the force-feeding knowledge of the heavenly Holy Grail, she was simply intoxicated. Unfortunately, this boss, Qin Guang, was too stingy and not generous enough. The light rotated and Qin Guang appeared in Cloud City, but he was already empty-handed. He didn't bring out the 365 styles that Nicole threw to him before, and that super awesome spoon wasn't in his hand either. But it didn't matter, the formula had been forcibly stuffed into his brain. Although he didn't really participate in the research and development process, fortunately, because of the basic knowledge he learned in the first and second stages, since the formula was already in his hand, as long as he could get the raw materials and the necessary equipment for synthesis, he could make it. "How is it? This laboratory is awesome, right?" Liuli smiled and moved in front of him, looking like she was asking for credit. Qin Guang really wanted to hit her, but he felt that he couldn't beat her. That was a crazy 1 billion. He always felt that he could already see his incomparably miserable death 2 years later. He sighed. "Sigh, if I really die one day and you're locked in here forever, don't blame me, the savior, for not being helpful. You have to blame yourself for being too much of a pit. You have to reflect on your godly life. Once there was a cute savior in front of you, but you didn't cherish him. You weren't gentle to him nor considerate, and you always tricked him. When he died, it was too late for you to regret, but it's useless to regret. This is the most deceptive God Emperor in the world. If God can give you another chance to start over, please treat his successor well. You have to at least say 3 words to his successor: 'You're so handsome.' If you want to add a time limit to this handsome, it's best to add 100 million years." He muttered with a face full of vicissitudes, and even Liuli couldn't bear to see him. When Qin Guang finally disappeared, Lu Ming said tentatively, "Sister Liuli, you really tricked him this time, didn't you?" Liuli's face turned green and white. "Don't worry, it's okay. When the boat comes to the bridgehead, it will straighten out." "You want him to pray for himself again?" Liuli shrugged. "What else can I do? Things have come to this, what can I do?" Chapter 1041. Qin Guang, what's wrong with you? Why are you spacing out? Come back. After Qin Guang left the world in the cup, he felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell what it was. He subconsciously spaced out and then woke Hua Ling up. "No, nothing." With a stiff smile on his face, Qin Guang waved his hand and stood up. At the same time, he took out the photocatalyst stick that fell into the cup and handed it to Hua Ling. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu saw his strange expression and thought that he was annoyed with his hair. Only then did they realize that they might have gone too far. "Sorry, I couldn't control myself for a moment," Hua Ling said with a slight shyness. Qin Guang waved his hand. No, that's not the problem. I was thinking about something else. I just Suddenly had some incredible ideas in my mind. Forget it, you'll know later. I'll go back to the office first. It could be considered as paving the way for him to come out with a new photocatalyst formula in the future. Although it would definitely scare a bunch of people, especially professionals like Hua Ling and Zhong Yu, Qin Guang couldn't be bothered with shocking the world. Geniuses didn't need to explain to people. Just like the Tesla coil that no one could replicate now, but he had done it 100 years ago. You ask why he could do it. Why couldn't others? Very simple, because I am Tesla. You ask me where I have so much time to do research? Let me tell you, above our three-dimensional world, there is actually a four-dimensional world. I found the vortex point of the four-dimensional time dimension. I have been thinking and working in the four-dimensional parallel time for hundreds of years, so I took out the Tesla coil. I can create ball-shaped lightning. Are you convinced? Anyway, the photocatalyst formula I took out is invincible. It is unprecedented in this world, and it has never existed in this world before. I took it out and put it in front of you. What do you want? Hit me. You have to be convinced. Qin Guang even thought of a theoretical routine to explain. At this time, what he really couldn't let go of was another thing. There seemed to be something wrong with the number of his faith points. He counted on his fingers and thought to himself, the old man is a new era university student from the key universities of 211 and 985. He should be able to pass math, and simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division should be no problem for him. Ever since he no longer had any need for it, he didn't particularly mind the production of faith points. It had been a long time since he deliberately calculated and paid attention to it. Before starting work this time, he had roughly looked at the total amount and felt that 20 million was a lot. It was very cool and awesome. It was definitely enough. That was enough. But now he was inexplicably burdened with a debt of more than 1.46 billion yuan. He would ascend to heaven in 2 years, but his daily production was only about 400,000 yuan. Seeing that he was not far from death, he finally realized that something was wrong. His previous 8 great heavenly spirit seeing cups intermediate realm deity statues, the production capacity of the transient sea and the true martial realm, as well as the production capacity of the 2 fanatics Xue Lin and Chu Zijin, totaled up to 400,000. But what about the statue of the old man's master of languages, the world in the cup of light? If he remembered correctly, the production capacity of a single one-line heaven's realm deity statue should be more than 500,000 yuan. Then his current daily production of faith points should be steadily close to 1 million yuan. When he paid for the intermediate realm in the laboratory, he should have more than 50 million yuan of faith points in his savings. Although the debt was still as high as 1.44 billion yuan, at least the production capacity had increased. If the daily production capacity was close to 1 million yuan, he should be able to pay it off in 5 years. The pressure wouldn't be so great and he wouldn't be completely unable to see any hope of survival. But now the numbers were not right. Something was very wrong. Walking out of the laboratory, Qin Guang entered the world in the cup again. He didn't see Liuli and he didn't know where she was hiding. She probably felt that she was too much of a scam and felt guilty about what he said. She didn't have the face to see anyone, so she ran into the leaves of the deer cry fruit and hid. Forget it, thinking about how Liuli would drag her down with all her shit and pee. Ah pooey. He had clearly been scamming her all the way until now. It was time to teach her a lesson and let her understand that as a deity, she couldn't scam the main character too much. Qin Guang deliberately ran to the light ball of the deity statue in the language master's cup, reached his hand in and communicated with the Holy Grail to calculate the production capacity of faith points. After a while he scratched his head. Strange, it was a daily production capacity of 930,000. Then what was going on before? Qin Guang shouted in the direction of the deer cry fruit. Lily, there was a problem with my previous production capacity of faith points. There was no sound and everything was silent. The empty cloud city was desolate. Lily, where is she? Come out. Still no one. Qin Guang flew up and landed under the deer cry fruit. Deer cry, where is Liuli? The deer cry fruit coughed lightly. She went home. Who are you lying to? Isn't that a humanoid mummy wrapped in those leaves of yours? It's nothing, it just looks a little like a human. Lu Ming said these words very calmly. Qin Guang finally understood. It's hard to guard against a thief in the house. Liuli must have come up with some unorthodox method to secretly consume his faith points. That's right, her milk bath from before. That milky white bathwater, although it was sweet like pure milk in the mouth, the taste was a little too good. Now that he thought about it carefully, it was all suspicious. What a beast. This prodigal woman used the faith points that I worked so hard to earn as bathwater. Then she must have absorbed the energy of the power of faith from the bathwater and used it to moisturize her delicate skin. No wonder her skin looked so white, so tender, and so alluring. First she acted like a thief and stole my faith points to use as bathwater. Then she pressed confirm on one of her hands, turning me from a wealthy person into a cup slave with a debt of 1.46 billion. This wastrel really has no bottom line. She refreshes her own bottom line time and time again. Morals were corrupted and public morals were deteriorating day by day. As a god you can't be so shameless. No wonder she was finally embarrassed to hide this time. Doing such a thing even a thick-skinned person like me would be ashamed to death. Qin Guang almost fainted from anger. Then he stomped on the ground and flew up like lightning. He slapped heavily on the buttocks of the humanoid mummy wrapped in the leaves of deer cry fruit. Pa! Liuli's scream came from inside. Qin Guang. You're courting death. Qin Guang was still angry and wasn't afraid of her. Who told you to pretend you're not here? You still have the face to talk to me? Do you think it's easy for me to accumulate faith points? I was defeated by you just like that. Are you still human? I'm not human, I'm a god. You. Qin Guang was angered to the point that smoke was coming out from his 7 orifices. Rage surged in his heart and he threw another slap. This time he even used his special ability, causing a huge explosion that echoed throughout the entire city. Qin Guang. You can't blame me for this. The heavenly Holy Grail is leaking the power of the Holy Grail. Your power of faith is also leaking everywhere in Cloud City from the statue. You threw the Holy Grail into the sewage. So smelly. What's wrong with this emperor taking a milk bath? Deer Cry, let me out, I'm going to beat him to death. Deer Cry didn't feel it at all. He just shook the fruit and whistled, looking fearless. It seemed like Deer Cry was on the same side as Qin Guang this time. Liuli caused the heavens to be angry and the people to resent her. She was unpopular. Qin Guang had an accomplice in his hands, so he was even more unscrupulous. His big palm was only aimed at the same position of Liuli's buttocks through the leaves. I want to ask you, do you really want me to save you? What are you thinking in your head? What if you really kill me? Who asked you to squander? Who asked you to squander again? Pa. After being tortured by Liuli to his heart's content, Qin Guang finally had a rare chance to turn things around. He only hit her to his heart's content. Finally, when the furious Liuli was about to break free from the leaves, Qin Guang said, "Don't say anything. Anyway, from now on don't touch my faith anymore. Otherwise if I really die we'll all die together." Then he left the world in the cup, leaving only Liuli's various roars. After coming out, Qin Guang ran to his office and began to calculate the accounts. He summarized the statue of God that he currently had, as well as the situation of the world in the cup that he had completed and had the opportunity to set up a statue of God. If he could successfully erect a statue of the heavenly line God in the acting world, as well as a statue of the perfect physical body obtained from the previous intensive training and the heavenly line God realm training in the leg muscle group, he would be able to break through the 2 million daily production mark. As long as he didn't let the thieves cause trouble again, he would be able to pay off the huge loan of more than 1.46 billion in 2 years. As for the world of Nicosia's laboratory, then don't think about the statue of God. Obviously, the world in the cup in the laboratory did not have this function. Thinking of this, Qin Guang breathed a long sigh of relief. Damn it, he finally saw the hope of survival. But he was also very anxious. The calculation just now was that he would have to erect 2 more statues of God in the line tomorrow to just balance the income. Now, 1 more day of delay, the production would be a little less, and the hope of survival would be a little less when the 2-year period was up. Although the Holy Grail only said a simple sentence, "Otherwise you will be obliterated," which sounded very understated. But Qin Guang really didn't dare to bet on whether the Holy Grail was joking or not. The voice of this cup sounded even more rigid than the German's. He walked back and forth in the office repeatedly, pinching his fingers to count the time. No, I must find a way to improve efficiency. I can't waste any more time. I must get out of the Tongshan industrial factory as soon as possible, and then quickly find a way to get the statue of God to get faith. In order to survive, I must get myself back to fighting state. As for the changes in the world, those strange mutated creatures, and the power of the Holy Grail and the elemental power in the outside world? Sorry, the old man is like a clay bodhisattva crossing the river, he can't even protect himself. Let me solve my own urgent needs first and then think about the important task of saving the world. I can't do anything anyway, I can only take one step at a time. Qin Guang calculated in his heart and strode out the door. Old Gua. Come here. 10 minutes later, Guoming looked at Qin Guang with a puzzled face. Isn't this a little too rushed? Qin Guang waved his hand. There's no rush. Since we have a ready-made space, we can start building now. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.